right, everybody, and welcome to episode. Is this 11 now? No, this is 10. This is number 10.
We're in the two hands.
This is number 10 now. Wow. All right, we got to episode 10 of Third Man In, brought to you by Head Check Health. I am Mike Hickey. I am joined by
Charles Pickett.
And of course,
Terry Ryan.
All right. And so you just heard the boys are looking at me with the kind of wide-eyed because this is the first time I set up the soundboard and actually had the theme song, Brothers in Stereo's The Worst Crowd, play back in the room when we were getting started. And I don't think either one of them was expecting it. And
I'm on a high here now. I am riding high. But
we're going to get right into it. And the first thing we got to do this week is apologize to Mr. Terry Ryan.
Thanks, guys. Come on with it.
We're so sorry,
he's
buddy.
so humble.
Yeah, putting on his headphones so he can hear us better as we apologize to him.
Let's go. I'm going to soak this in. Why exactly are you apologizing, Mike? Tell me in full.
Well, I lost a year of my life here at some point.
Well, it's because we were wrong and you were right.
Yeah. Exactly. About?
About the Ottawa Senators and about just how quickly their dumpster fire ignited. We gave them a little bit extra credit, and you were like, no, it was a calendar year. From being all in and trying to pick up guys like Duchesne to, it was, I guess, 14 months later was when they were starting to sell the farm. And me and Charles had thought there was an extra season in between there, and we were very wrong.
Yeah. I can't believe in my lifetime this is the first time I've given too much credit to the Ottawa Senators.
I know. It's shocking. And just to really put the nail in the coffin, we're actually recording this on Paddy's Day. It is Sunday, and Charles is still just a little bit. He kind of twitches anytime he says Ottawa Senators after that game last night, where the Leafs fell. What was the final after?
Oh my God!
What was the final after?
I think they got 20 on us.
Something like that.
To me, it felt like 20 pucks went in the Leafs.
And you know what? I got to say, as someone watching that game last night, I feel like there's one person who takes the brunt of that loss. And I'm going to disagree with Charles on who that is. Because I was watching last night, and oh man, what a joke Nylander is.
Keep going.
Really?
Wow.
I counted 3 times where he just threw.
Tell us how you really feel.
I counted 3 times where I saw him just throw a blind pass back to their D where no one was. And just in the middle of the ice.
I did pick up on he did that on the 5-on-3.
He did it
twice.
He did it. The 5-on-3 time was at least the second time he did it, and it burned 20 seconds of a 5-on-3.
I'm gonna rate who I'm blaming for this. I'm
not done. I'm also going to talk about every time he took a shot or a pass, he ended up with one hand on a stick, skating around, being like, "Oh well, I tried." And then let's talk about
a great effort on the night before on Matthews' goal. Did you see that?
Yeah, he did.
I'm talking about last night.
All right. Unfortunately, we have to talk about last night.
Keep filming. I like it.
And then in the last goal, in the last couple minutes, when the Leafs are putting on a pile of pressure, and they get him high slot, and Matthews does a beautiful little drop pass to him high slot, and he totally fucking fans on it, and it turns over, and that's the 6th Ottawa goal.
Fanning on, I don't mind because it's a mistake, but I do find Nylander doesn't give 100%.
It was on a tee.
Yeah,
it was laid up to him. Like I wouldn't have missed that fucking pass for fuck's sake.
I know what you're saying, but to me, it's the lack of effort sometimes.
And that's it. It's the lack of effort. And I know, like last night, Don Cherry also took some heat on Twitter for the way he worded his criticism of Nylander. But I think that there's a level of compete that's not there.
Yeah.
And I think willingly sitting out half the season.
I don't know if it was willingly.
How is it not willingly?
Okay, if they gave him
it was an extension. He was still under contract.
Yes. No, he wasn't. He was an RFA. He was a restricted free agent, so there was no contract there. If they gave him that deal he signed, that was their top offer. Both teams said, both his agency group and Dubas said that was our top offer. They sent it at the 11th hour. If they gave him, I don't know William Nylander. I know he used to look like the child from the Home Alone series.
And he still looks like that little dentist dude from Hermie from Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
There's an image that my friend Rick sent me where he's wearing a shirt that it looks like I'm on, but I don't know him. However, I would like to think that if they sent him that offer, that $6.9 million offer on October 2nd or whatever fucking date the season started, I think he was.
He's not signing it.
No, I don't know.
He's sitting it out.
I'll tell you this. I never understood. I mean, it's pennies. Like I swear to God, my agent did my agent was Mike Barnett, the best guy there was at the time. He had Gretzky, Brett Hull, Jagger, Fuhrer, all of them, and a lot of them. Anyway, he had myself, Damon Lankow, and Brian Boucher, who's going to be our guest today. We all went in the first round. He had all of us. Like he picked you early. He was 14. I was 14 when he got me. Took good care of me, but I had nothing to do with that. I remember him asking me, and I was like, Mike, I'll take anything. Like, if you tell me I'm going to play a game in the NHL, I'll take any, like, whatever. What's the minimum? Yeah. And he's like, no, you can't sell yourself like that. But that's the way I thought about it. I thought it's going to take care of itself. This guy's so young. I'm saying it from the perspective of all the pressure, and people do it all the time. Even if you're a superstar, I don't know, go back to A-Rod when he signed the $250 million 10-year deal, whatever it was, or close to. You know, you got to come out, and I know that's totally different, but I'm trying to make something totally different, kind of bring it in and show the parallels. And I really think that you put all that pressure on yourself, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. What's the difference if he got 6? What did he end up getting?
6.9.
6.9. So I
for 420 years.
Yeah, so if he plays like this, stats or no stats, I mean, he comes out of the gate with, 1 goal in 20 games, and now we're looking at it, and you can obviously see the lack of compete in the guy.
Yeah.
So, like, I just think, what's the difference if he signed a $6 million? What are you, 21 years old? What's the problem there?
Yeah.
Well, you see, and then the pressure's not on you. I think you'll come out to a different. Like I said, I don't believe in the ghosts of the Forum or the ghosts of Leaf Gardens or any of that shit. But I do believe in karma and an attitude.
And I think it's there. And I think missing half the season, I think missing the training camp, I think that being that guy who held out and the wide effect that it's having on that room probably. I think all those things are coming in, and the pressure of you held out, you got your 6.9, you better fucking show up now, and he's not. I think all those things are playing into William Nylander having a very disappointing season, and him holding a lot of the weight from that loss last night.
You know what, Mike? To me, that should never happen. That the year that you make your bank. Like the same year we're talking about him having a disappointing season now, only a few months after him signing the biggest contract of his life.
He hasn't had a season yet. That's what I'm going to say. He hasn't, like,
Good point.
We were how many games?
Fault,
yeah, well,
that's again. That's my point.
I guess I see
unless like who's not to say that Dubas was firing him 5.8, 5.4, and I know it's like, what's the difference between that couple 100,000 or whatever when you're 21 and you're living in Toronto and you're the goddamn.
What the problem is?
However, you got to understand, this is a union, so this guy is say he takes the sweetheart deal at 5.5. You don't think the PA guys are phoning him saying, "What are you doing taking that?" You don't think that happens?
There's a happy medium, I guess.
Definitely happens. But there were people running around. There were people, and once again, something that drove me absolutely insane about, I'm going to say, everything hockey related was we were in this pressure cooker of, like, Sportsnet, TSN, the sports, like, it's not even called Sports Desk anymore. All of these interviews, podcasts, everyone under the sun talking about William Nylander's contract thing for like 11 weeks.
Yeah.
He signed. He missed half of a year. Has he exceeded my expectations? No. Am I going to say... I'm not going to blame last night on him when our goalie was a goddamn sieve.
That is not at all true. Sparks put up
I'm
a
not
huge
drawing the
first
line
period.
to blame the game on him, though.
One thing I will say...
I'm saying his compete level is a little low for a guy that just fucking held out for half a season in the National Hockey League at 21 for extra millions of dollars. Anyway.
And I'm gonna jump off of that. Compete level is what TR brought up. There's a lot of guys.
Compete level.
Did you bring up? Okay.
I think I did, but
there's a lot of guys on this Leafs team that, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's stale that they're locked in this position of the standings for the last fucking 10 weeks now, or what feels like since Christmas happened. I don't know if it's the fact that you can't raise the urgency going on the second night of back-to-backs, going into a barn where this team has won fucking 2 games since Hosanna roamed the earth in the goddamn Old Testament days. I don't know what it is, but the compete level is definitely not there. Everyone talks about the obvious choice of captain is John Tavares right now. That game against the Flyers, John Tavares he was frankly not just underwhelming, but invisible to me. He had the puck in the slot once, and I was like, oh yeah, we got this guy. I literally thought he was either sitting out with the flu or injured. He just wasn't there. But we're in this weird pressure vessel where it's easy. And I'm gonna clean this up soon because I'm still very frustrated with last night's game. It's so easy to dunk on William Nylander because of that. Where
it's
are we
very
right now?
easy. That's why I did
it. Log on right now and talk about how many people are looking like, is there an update on Jake Gardiner? Holy sweet fuck! And read those same comments of these people in December. We're like, at all costs, we got to get rid of Gardiner. We can't have Gardiner. And now everyone's like, geez. Where is he? How soon is he?
It's a depleted Leafs team because Jake Gardner's not there. Yeah.
Whatever it is, they've got 10 games to figure it out. They have been.
It's been a rough week for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Let's be honest.
I want to add to that. What I just said about Nylander has nothing to do with last night's game. Okay. I'm saying it on overall. And what's frustrating is that it's there. Like some games, he really competes. Go back like 2 games ago. Like I said, there was a goal. I think it was Matthews. He got it to him behind the net. He was on his stomach. And some
Philly.
Yeah. It's just inconsistency. And to me, one thing that you can bring every night, you can bring it all. You can be consistently. At least you can't make yourself to be a consistent scorer, but you can make yourself be a consistent hard worker. And if you're not doing that after holding out, that's my problem. If he just what was in a rut, I threw him a bone on the first 18 games or whatever it was before he scored.
Yeah.
But when the compete's not there, I find that disrespect. I find it you're almost, it's just too easy. Like you know what I mean. Here you are, a guy that sat out. You made. You knew that everybody would be talking about. You knew this pressure would be on you. You knew the focus. You knew all because of what you did.
Yeah.
So you got to come out and compete harder. Second thing I'm going to add to that, and I know I often say Leafs, Habs. Let's talk about them less, but they are pretty relevant in Canada. And I should say, if we're talking about compete levels, one thing the Habs have looked very lackluster lately, and another thing, I liked what Andrew Shaw said. Andrew Shaw came out in an interview and. Pretty much, I'm not going to say blamed his teammates. He worded it in a way that, we got to wake the fuck up here.
Yeah.
And, it starts right in this room. Like, we can't be throwing daggers at this guy who played bad or that guy. Like, we got to compete hard every night like I do. And I kind of liked what he said.
I like what he said, too. But the thing that I'm getting really caught off with lately is it seems to me that more and more players are coming out and doing that.
Like McDavid the other night.
McDavid did it the other night.
Yeah.
Remember, Reinhart did it with the goalies. Like, and you were leaving one day and we brought it up and your head exploded. You're like, what the fuck was he doing saying that? But you're getting more guys coming out and throwing their teams under the bus. And it's
in a way, it's how you word it, I think.
Yeah,
and that's the thing.
I don't think they're throwing the teams under the bus at all. I think
it's something that you're not getting previously in the NHL. The way the guys are coming out now, whether they're wording it and not throwing their team under the bus, but they're still getting out there and saying like, our team needs to pick up our shit. We're fucking trash. We're a dumpster fire. We're whatever. Whatever they're saying, you're getting it now in a way that you never got before. Where before, all that shit was in the locker room and it never came out to the media. It's just, we got to get the right bounces. We got to get pucks in deep. We got to do this.
Maybe.
Now it's like, we're playing shit. We got to be better.
Yeah. And I literally did a fist pump and said, mouth thank you to Tierra when he brought up the Andrew Shaw thing because I forgot about that. It happened early in the week.
However, a mouth thank you. I
mouthed it. I didn't say it out loud.
Thank you for mouthing it.
A mouth thank you sounds kind of dirty. I'm just throwing it out there.
Oh, good grief.
Have you mouthed other people lately?
Oh, boy. I'm just going to take a sip of coffee and recompose here.
And
so one thing I'm going to say about that is the Shaw situation, having it happen, okay, it has happened a couple of times in the NHL right now, but having it happen in Montreal was very, very important. Not only because, as you said, they've kind of looked lackluster, they've kind of come out flat in must-win games like that game against the Islander, but all I could think about was, holy fuck, they sent Mike Camilleri out of town in the middle of a period for doing the exact same thing, and the quotes were pretty similar. Andrew Shaw was like, well, we got to stop playing like a bunch of losers. Mike Camilleri's, and that's paraphrased, I don't know the word for word. Mike Camilleri's quote, I do remember word for word, was pretty much, there's a lot of guys in this dressing room right now who are okay with being losers, and we've got to fix that. And it wasn't a weekend after he made that quote that boom, he was hauled off the bench.
I know, but it was a similar
Bork,
quote
right?
from two different people though. Like I said, there's it's each call is a different judgment call. There's so much going on in the room. Had Camilleri won a Stanley Cup at that point, like Andrew Shaw?
No,
playing that way. Andrew Shaw has proven.
Has Mike Camilleri won a cup? Did he get one with the Devils? Was he with the Devils?
Yeah, I don't know. I
think he might have came right after the Devils.
I don't think he. I bet that he doesn't have a cup.
Yeah, I think he's cupless.
If we were slightly more professional, we'd look it up. But we.
Mike Camilleri.
Oh yeah. I don't know. Yeah, but it's kind of irrelevant. No, actually, you know what? It's really fucking relevant. If he said that after he won a cup and they still got rid of him, to me, I look at Andrew Shaw. There's an extra little notch in his cap there. If he was talking to me, I would listen with intensity. I would want to know.
No, he does not have a cup.
No, he doesn't. So Shaw's saying it coming into playoff time, and he leads by example. I watch what I can. I try to see at least, half the games that the Leafs and the Habs play. Hard given our schedules, but, I watch the replays, and everything I watch with Shaw seems to be, like I said, he might go in a slump, but you're usually going to get 100% out of him or close to. You're not going to see him take that many nights off, and I think when you're that much of a leader by example, and when you've gotten the big prize, you have a little more leeway to say things like that. And if he'd been slightly more derogatory and finger pointish, I maybe wouldn't agree, but he's and McDavid too. They kind of, what they said is that there's some people in here basically that give their fucking heads a shake.
I think McDavid can get away with hitting someone with a steel chair. He's McDavid. I literally think he could just tune up someone with a steel chair, and they'd be like,
yeah, you know what though? I'm worried about.
Well, I've got the Shaw quote here, guys. We haven't had a game where every guy in the room has been going the same night. That's the type of team we are. We need to be playing hard. Every line, all D, the goalie, everyone's got to be playing like this every night. Lines are taking nights off. Players are taking nights off.
Well, that's the kind of team they are, though. He's right. They're going to come at you. They're fast. They can be fairly physical, way more than you would think those Habs would be with that many scooters. But they got to be in your face, and they got to be coming at you, and they got to be just not stopping, the Energizer Bunny type thing, just like Shaw. I hate to say that. Yeah. Well, look at all of them when they're on their game. Drouin, when Drouin is playing well, he's buzzing. When he's playing terrible, man, he gives that puck away. I'd like to know what that stat is, man. He gives it away a lot.
That's a guy who I look at, and it reminds me. I don't even. They might even wear close to similar numbers. He reminds me of the Alex Kovalev type in Montreal. Mm. When he's working and moving,
unbelievable.
He is good.
But joy to watch, even.
Yeah, and when he's kind of like out there for a skate, it's like, he's out there for a skate.
And and guys like that are so talented, though, that. It's obvious when they're out there for a skate. I hate to say that, but like Duran is such a good skater, and he's got such a style of finesse and creativity that if he's not giving it his all, it's really noticeable.
Yeah.
More so than a guy like Shaw. So it's also easier for a guy like Shaw to lead by example when success to you means going out and throwing a body check.
Yeah.
When someone else got to put it in the back of the net, it's not as easy. So I do understand that, and I think he does too. I would be surprised if Shaw's teammates don't like him. And I remember when Camilleri did that. I can't remember. There seemed to be a bit of animosity. I'm not saying the teammates didn't like him, but Shaw seems to have a more pull in the room and respect than Camilleri did at the time. So that might be why it's a little bit different. I have no reason to assume. I just think, knowing some people in Montreal and knowing people around the room, I hear that people really, really respect Andrew Shaw.
That's actually a good way to frame it with the Mike Camilleri situation. It might have been just a very, very big case of, are you fucking kidding me? This guy is saying that? This guy is saying that to us? I wonder if we can get Andrew Shaw to, I don't know, call someone in the Leafs dressing room before they play Nashville on Tuesday night and say the same thing.
The Leafs, but the dumpster fucking fire of D that they've played over the last few games. Man. Boys, and I know everybody's going to be talking about this, but you can't be letting in 5 and 6 goals a night. How about that? How about this? First box to tick on the way to the Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
Let's not let in 5 goals a night.
It's or 26 goals in the last 3 games. 18 in 3 games.
23 in their last 4.
And you know what? That to me, that's why they're not going to win the Stanley Cup. I hope they do. People would laugh at me for saying this, but no, Dave Roper is one of my best friends, and he's the equipment manager. He's from Mount Pearl. That's the reason that of course, it kills me to say this as a former Hab, and of course, I hope that they win it. I don't think either team's going to. And the reason for Toronto, the Habs, I got a lot of reasons. The reason for Toronto is that I don't care where you are. That's not unlucky. That's a habit.
Yeah, that's bad. That's bad. That's bad medicine.
That's bad. And if you in that amount of time let in that many goals, I mean, I'd really wonder if an American Hockey League team playing their hardest would go up and maybe do a little bit better than that defensively.
They did last night, TR.
I also do have the Camilleri quote here now. I can't accept that we will display a losing attitude as we're doing this year. We prepare for our games like losers. We play like losers. So it's no wonder why we lose. Generally, it's been muddled in the French to English translation or English to French translation.
That is a bit more abrasive than Shaw's statement.
It's slightly more a lot of things.
Yeah, he's not only talking about his teammates, he's talking about coaching staff there. He's talking about
and at this point he got hauled off the bench after 9:02 on the ice and got told to take off his gear and grab a fucking taxi. They're playing the Bruins.
Ah, okay, I thought so.
They were in Boston.
Yeah, I knew it was a big game. Like
they were in Boston. It was January 11th, 2012. He'd played 9:02 with no goals, no shots, no takeaways, no hits, and then just take off your gear, hop on a fucking cab, and then take off your gear, go get a cab. And then wait, because we'll let you know where you're going then.
Yes.
They didn't even tell him they sent him back to his hotel before they told him.
So was it Gerard Gallant, the coach of the Flyers, that they put in a cab?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think it was.
Have you guys ever been to a game in Montreal?
Yeah,
I haven't.
A couple. You haven't?
I haven't. No word of a lie, and I was quite I have never actually been to an NHL regular season game.
Go away.
Never done. Wow.
Yes,
I know,
boy.
And it's killing me.
I had front row seats for 8, but no, but in all honesty, boys, that's the thing.
You had front row seats for a lot more than 8.
Actually a lot more than 8. That's true. Yeah. I was counting the ones that I didn't get a shift in.
Now, here's a question. Were you considered a healthy scratch for those?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I got on my NHL game pension list, I got 160 games. That's how many I sat out when I was there. But now that being said, guys, when I was 19, they were very honest with me, and I'm glad I had my time. It was as if I was on the team. They took me around and practiced for the year. I went back to Red Deer with only 16 games left in February, and I knew that at the beginning. Mario Tremblay called me and he said, "We'd rather have you here than going and fighting all year in June, and we'd rather practice with the team." So I would go, and Benoit Brunet was a left winger saying Scott Thornton, and they would sit out for one of the 3-on-2s, and I'd go, and then after practice, me and Darcy Tucker and a bunch more would get bag skated, do whatever. But it was great. I loved that. I only played 3 games that year, but I was there for 5 or 6 months, and so I really do feel like more part of it than it would seem on a stat sheet. And then in the summers we would go and train with all the guys. So it seems to me it's when I run into guys, even Scott Thornton was like, Jesus, it seemed like you were there longer than that.
Yeah.
So I do feel that I have a deeper connection with the team than it would appear on. And I'm going somewhere with this. I loved the vibe in Montreal. I've heard that I saw most of the NHL games. Like I said, they took me on the road, and I did play, 29 exhibition or something like that. So I did get to see most rinks. I got the feel for most teams, and man, for Montreal not to come out on fire with this in this stretch, it is a zoo in there. That place is real hard to play in on the road. So that's what surprises me more than anything. Toronto too, but maybe
last night they put up 48 shots. Crawford just stood on his head.
Oh yeah, I know. Well, that's my point in some of it. Last night, actually, I thought that they had a much better effort than they have in the past. But still, sometimes if you watch Montreal and they get the 48 shots, have you ever noticed? And I'm pointing at Joanne and. I guess just because it's more obvious, but fuck. I'll just bring that up for obvious. So a couple times he had it, and he'll wheel around, but he's not stopping and starting. So he's going to go down or they, whoever it is, it might be, at times I could blame is the wrong word, but everybody, I find they get in a rhythm and they're not stopping and starting. The Flying Frenchman, the old adage, but they're giving up just as much shit the other way. There's 48 shots might not have gotten. They might not have given up, but a lot of near misses, a lot of scoring chances, and I find it's wide open. It's great. It's great to watch as a fan because there's a lot of mistakes. But I find in those games are the very games that they give up some defensive opportunities, and that's the only thing about Montreal. They can get into that wheel and deal thing, and if everything's not going right, you get crushed. And they got to have everybody finishing checks and playing defense as well, right?
I'll say this about going to a game in Montreal. Best NHL game I've ever seen. My team got dummied.
Well, that's because you went to see your team. Isn't that a rule? You told me that you wouldn't go see Game 7 just because you curse your team.
Well, yes, but they usually, they show up. They keep it interesting. Manny Malhotra scored a breakaway shorthanded goal. And I've been to a handful of NHL rinks. I'll say this. The Bell Center is absolutely bananas, absolutely insane. Yeah. Two, I've been to the Air Canada Centre, now Scotiabank Arena, a couple of times. It's it's not fair to compare it to the Bell Center, but I'll say this: I've been to the Ottawa rink for a couple of Leafs games. That's louder than our own home barn.
Oh,
Zach
yeah.
Smith even said last night they got the first goal to take the crowd out of it, and he kind of smiled and winked because
Cody Ceci got it too.
It was Cody Ceci, was it?
Yeah, first goal since December.
Yeah.
But the reason I was asking about the healthy scratch thing actually was just because I was reading the Athletic just before you guys got here. I was reading they've got a really interesting piece on Steve Kampfer, who plays with the Bruins, who's been a healthy scratch since like December.
Oh yeah.
And it's just talking there, and it was just like a nice profile on him talking about like how he works with sports psychologists and works with guys on the team just to try to keep him in it, knowing that he could get the call any night and he has to be ready, but he's just not playing.
Remember, I was telling you guys about a guy, Wayne Hollowell, that helped me out.
Yeah.
Well, that was kind of coming in then, that off ice sports specific kind of therapy kind of thing, and that's what he was there for. Now, that being said, most of my conversations with him, if they were negative, were just about my concussion. That's the only thing I was worried about. I really, really was humble up there, guys. Like, I couldn't believe I was in the NHL. I loved it. You know, it's all expectations. I had confidence in myself, just like Junior. Like, you know, in my first year, I said, you know, I know I'm going to come back stronger. I was never worried, but I joke about that ice time and everything, but I was never worried. I was happy just to be on the Montreal Canadiens, and it wasn't my time. And looking back, a lot of people question, you know, things that happen. I just didn't get along with Michel Therrien, and that became the story. But I don't know if he necessarily kept me out of the NHL. I didn't like him, and I made the decision not to go back to camp. I went and I ended up in Dallas, got hurt and all that. But, you know, a lot of that shit was my own doing. I really embraced it, man. I loved it up there. And this time of year, that's why I hope they make the playoffs, man, because this time of year, a game is one thing. A playoff game is insanity.
Well, that was it. Maria went to a playoff game a couple years ago between the Habs and the Bruins. Ooh. And she, like, her sister came to meet her there, and Maria, like, traveled to the game on the subway with, like, her jersey in a bag, like with her jersey in a bag because she didn't want to put it on. And then when she like put it on, when she got there, was in the stands and her sister was there and she wasn't alone anymore. There was dudes like turning around, like screaming at her and yelling. And the Bruins lost that night. And she was like, "I'm fucking glad they did," because she didn't know what would have fucking happened if the Bruins had actually won that game.
I mean, being a 6-foot guy, I guess nobody really did that to me. Being there in a Leafs jersey, no. I would chirp people. I'll say this though, I was up there when they were in the playoffs and playing Boston. I went up for a Rush concert.
Yeah.
And 2 nights before the concert, they were playing the Bees, and I went looking for tickets. I went down to the rink and said, "Look, if I can get a cheap ticket, I'll go in." And I went down with a bit of cash. I talked to a couple people, and it was just absolutely hilarious. They're like, "Yeah, tickets." I was like, "Yeah, you selling?" They're like, $350. So I was like, "Oh, where to?" It's like in the high bowl.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh yeah, no, we'll move this tonight."
I don't care if the Leafs Bruins make Game 7. I'm buying you a ticket.
Oh, sir. Who was that healthy scratch? Michael Kemper?
Steve Kampfer.
Steve Kampfer. It's March 17th, and I'm going to congratulate Steve Kampfer for at least 1 game-winning goal in the series between Boston and Toronto. Congratulations, Steve.
Yeah, he hasn't played since December 23rd.
It's coming. You wait. It'll be one of those nice. David Amber will have a great profile on him when he scores the goal.
100%. You were going to say TR?
No, that sounds terrible on the surface, but maybe he's. I'm sure they're working closely with him. He'd be down if not. So,
and that's it. Is he's working with a sports psychologist, Max Offenberger. He's talking about his really strong support system that he has, and it's just that the fact of the matter is he's number 8 on the depth chart. And they're only cycling, it's a deep team.
But the thing is, guys respect that shit, and they really do, and they know, they go out of their way. I mean, that's hockey for you, man. Like people, and not only that, there will be a time someone gets injured or some shit, and he's got to go in, and that's when, for me, I talk about all that karma stuff. Yeah, I love that feeling of going in. There's no pressure on me. I haven't played in a while. All I can do is help because my friend is out now, and he needs my help. And those are situations that are completely opposite of the Nylander one. That I think that it's easy to grow and become a healthier kind of minded player from it because you got to go through so much. But you come in a situation that's just set up to be such a positive that the boys stand behind you, and those are the situations that I love getting into.
And that's kind of a nice callback because I think
good callback.
I think it is something that just proves the point that I would imagine that a guy in Kampfer's situation is more respected and more appreciated in that room than somebody in a Nylander situation is.
Well, I'll
and
tell
that's
you
my
this,
thought.
guys.
That's what that's because I know that's how I'd be. But I'd also be the guy that's fucking healthy scratch for 8 months.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I was in a similar situation. You're not going to believe this, as you know, because I've had some success in senior hockey. My uncle can afford me to play, a couple times a week, and I love playing. And I've said it on here before. We're knocked out now, but I played again this year. But a few years ago, when I played with Clarenville, and I talk about the Allen Cup, we went up there. I was suspended for the first 2 games of the Allen Cup. So we got to pick up some players to go. One guy was Cam Fergus on Grand Falls. Yeah. And this guy's out of his mind. Like, he's unbelievable hands. 50 and junior. I'm confident Cam could have played and been an impact player in the AHL at the very least. One of the best imports I've ever seen come in. But he came in and to our lineup and started ripping it up. Yeah. So now game 3, we're in the Allen Cup. And here I am, like, wanting to get in the Allen Cup. I'm up there. My book's coming out that weekend. I had an interview with Bob McCowan. All the Caribous are my buddies. I've played all year. Yeah. I didn't put myself in. I was just like, Ivan asked me, and I said, like, I don't feel like, we're winning. We're going here. Fergie came in there. He's a great player anyway. He's fucking 20 or 12 years younger than I am. So he went in, and he ended up being like one of the best players there, and getting us to the final, and we lost in double overtime. And I often tell the story about losing, but I didn't have my gear on that game. Yeah, it had to come down to something. I wasn't going to sit one of the or it wasn't up to me, but I worked with the coaches. They picked me up for a reason, to be a leader. Yeah, and the best opportunity I could be as a leader. And this is funny because like a few years later, I won the scoring championship, things like that. So it's not like my actual talent, and we're talking about senior hockey in the Allen Cup, so we were all going for it, but I had a great year. It was just, it didn't make sense for me to go in. I think it would have been the wrong move for the team. Yeah, certain guys are going. Again, I know it's fucking senior hockey and it's relative, but sometimes, Bob Gainey, the story in 1986 when he had 2 separated shoulders, that's adversity in the form of injuries. When you get Steve Yzerman, who for the last year of his career, right, he's making this money and he's a legend, but I remember he got a puck in the face one year in the playoffs. Remember that shit? He got it right up. Then he came back and he played on the 4th line for his last couple of years. You could make the argument, and remember, people were going, well, some people were saying, well, Yzerman's had it, and he is a 4th liner now, but they had some injuries and he got called up or called up. He went up to the first line for like 3 weeks. I remember he was my favorite player for a while. So. And I remember watching this, and he had all kinds of success. Yeah. You could just see that, on that team at that point, Steve Yzerman, who was a really underrated hard worker too, because he was so finesse, people forget how fast he was skating and how much he could back check and play the whole game. But, and he took a different kind of stance. It's not always about stats. It's not always, and when I say not always, never. The stats are important, and it separates guys. At the end of the year, it can give you a good contract. It's obvious that by the end of the year that McDavid gets more points and Crosby and these guys and Kane than other players. But when it gets into the playoffs, who gives a fuck where the goals come? All that says to me is that the highest percentage chance we have is that you're going to score the goal. But we might need you to block a goddamn shot. Yeah. And we might need you to take a punch in the face. And we might need you to sit on the end of the fucking bench because a rookie's playing better this night. And those are the teams that win. That's why Sean Thornton has 2 Stanley Cups. Yep. Right? And Alexei Yashin has none.
Oh my God! I forgot about Alexei Yashin.
Well, I don't, just because our buddy JP does like full on Alexei Yashin cosplay when he plays with us. He's got Sen socks. He's got pants with the stripe. He's like a turtleneck away from fucking full on Yashin cosplay. I chirp him about it constantly.
It is though. Look at Yashin. Like that's a stat guy right there.
Oh man, I forgot he was. Guy. And I tell you, I think we're getting to the point of the season, and this is we're getting to the point of, and it happens every year where you find the best hockey stories are when something comes out that you find out a guy does something that the team needs before him, more or less. And especially in the playoffs. I mean, you had last year, and I know we've talked about the Leafs a lot, but you had Plekanec, who the Leafs picked up as a depth guy. He was in and out of the lineup at the end of the year, and all of a sudden...
Just keep talking.
All of a sudden, he draws into the top line center just to go up against Bergeron, and it was just like, he could have sulked and be like, "Are you guys fucking You know, I'm a healthy scratch half the remainder of the season, and then in and out. And then, but no, I just like to double down on what TR said, especially in the playoffs. So that's why I congratulated that. What is it, Kempfer?
Kempfer, yeah, Steve Kempfer.
Yeah, all right. He's going to get a big one.
Before we say anything else, and I'm just going to predict this. I predict that Tkachuk, Matthew
Tkachuk.
I predict he's going to have a Stanley Cup.
Ooh.
Oh yeah, no, that guy.
I'm not saying this season, and I know you got to be lucky too. 32 teams, but if he doesn't win one with Calgary, someone's going to want him because he's the kind of. There's a few around the league, but he's my favorite player to watch now.
And one of my favorite things about Matthew Tkachuk is that he's somebody who's grown the fuck up fast.
Yeah, man.
Like he's a guy who started his career just a couple years ago, and he was like full on rat pest, getting a bunch of suspensions, just going out and doing stupid shit. And he's managed to, in a very short amount of time, take all that part of his game and rein it in to the point where he's more.
I'll tell you this:
people are scared to go up against him, and it's because he's so fucking crazy. But it's getting him on the score sheet in a different way.
Thing. I think that there was no growing up about it. I think it was all planned. I think it was dumb like a fox, because people. All he did, there was absolutely no pressure in his first year. You know what he had to do? He had to make room for himself.
Yeah.
All he did was set up his first couple years in the NHL. If I score bonus, and he scored more than most rookies do.
Yep.
But I'm going to get myself some room. And now he gets all kinds of room. And I've always said it. It's only a fraction of a second down there, you know, in the slot. If you got the power, you can get open for a tip. If you can get your stick on a puck, just like 20 times more in the course of a season. And but when you fight and when you're dirty and when you play hard, people are just a little bit less to be all over you right away. And you get a fraction of a second. And by the end of the year, that's 20 or 30 points. And a guy like that is going to take advantage. And I'm not putting down your point. I know exactly what you're saying.
But
he did mature as a player in a lot of ways.
And that's the thing is, I think that your point kind of confirms mine, but makes the point that it wasn't an afterthought. It was a plan.
Yeah.
You know, and it wasn't
an interesting take.
And I like that, and I agree with you on it. I think it's because the other thing is that
I did that more than once. I mean that my first year in the WHL as a 16-year-old.
Yeah.
Right. I had 176 penalty minutes. I didn't know till they honored me a couple weeks ago, but I had 22 fights that year. I led the team. Sure. My first year in the A, I joke about it that Tyrion gave me the tap a few times, but way more. I fought 34 times that year. I would have gotten in 20 though, guaranteed, because I used to do that knowing. And sure enough, right, you come back the next season in both cases, and you get way more room. And you know that I know it's all relative, and I'm not Matthew fucking Tkachuk. I'm just saying the reason that I could see it like that is because I've been in a relatively similar situation twice, 2 or 3 times as a rookie in a league that's rough.
Got a question for you guys.
I was just going to ask the question of how much do you think that his father had an impact on that then?
I don't know. Judging by me, my father had a big impact on it. For him, his father was an actual player that played the same kind of way, power forward.
Yeah.
I don't think in this. I think Matthew Tkachuk is a smart enough player that his father didn't have to say, "Now you go and do that."
Yeah.
But I think in so many words it was articulated to him. Yes, I do for sure.
Okay.
I mean, how were you successful, Dad? Well, this is what I did. I didn't take any shit.
Yeah.
You know, stuff like that.
Don't be afraid to
I'm spitballing. I could be wrong.
And you know what? There's part of me that really hopes. Like, I just really want to see like Keith Tkachuk in his basement in a bathrobe just yelling at Matthew about how to fucking break through.
Matthew Tkachuk, you think he's a poor man's Brad Marchand, or you think Brad Marchand's a rich man's Matthew Tkachuk?
I think that they are just very similar players.
I think the other way around eventually.
You think the other way around?
Well, that's the thing is, at the end of the day, Matthew Tkachuk's a bigger player too. And so the people don't stay away from Marchand for the same reasons they're going to stay away from Tkachuk.
I consider Marchand more of a, I don't want to say pest, I want to say a crude pest, and over the top. Like I don't like more things that Marchand does as compared to the other way around.
Because that's the thing, is with Tkachuk, it's generally still a hockey play.
Yeah.
Like when he's getting on with bullshit, it's hockey bullshit.
Fair.
When Marchand is getting on with bullshit, it's Marchand bullshit.
For a tiny guy, he has a lot of room.
Yeah.
He's made a lot of room.
Oh God,
for himself.
In that case, it's similar. Yes.
You know, that's,
oh God,
that's what I meant by you brought up how you make your
very
room
similar.
for yourself.
Yeah.
Okay.
For a very small guy, he has made I never hear people talk about how small Brad Marchand is, but when the draft comes around and when all those things come around, it's always a slight. And it's not as bad as it used to be, but it's always a slight, well, he's small. If he was a little bigger, if he was a little...
Hey, man.
Brad Marchand
and
has
he might
a lot
spear
of
you in the
room.
nuts, right? That's the other thing.
Oh,
People,
yeah.
Remember when he did that and people were kind of upset, but that'll give you room in front of the
yeah.
net.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
He's-
I remember Bird Dog's thinking used to be, when I talked about all Bird's suspensions and everything, he would laugh, and, years later we'd talk about it, and but that's what is his thing. He's like, I many times would say, okay, I'll take a suspension or I'll take a match penalty, but in the long run, I'm going to win this battle because I'm going to get more room and no one's going to come at me. And some players play like that. And Marchand, I can't think of a better example of what we just talked about. You're right. I mean, he is a little bit more over the top, but that just makes him crazier. I mean, I don't like the guy, but I certainly would, like you said, I think a lot of it with him is show.
Yeah.
And when it comes down to it, he is a pretty good teammate, isn't he?
Yeah, but still, I wouldn't put it this way. I wouldn't take I'd give him, if it's the end of the night, we're on George Street and Brad Marchand's there, I'd be like, no, you're crazy. You take this cab. I'll get the next one.
Yeah.
But it's the same kind of thing of giving him space.
He gets
right?
a lot of room.
All right, and I'm just sad that in that conversation, it's kind of been hinted at on Twitter. We are getting a store set up pretty soon, and we got a shirt coming that says "Here for a good time, not the stat line," and I really want one of you guys to drop that so that we can help sell some shirts later. But here we go. And with that, I think it's time to take the Bob Cole "Oh Baby" moment of the week. All right, and so with the Bob Cole "Oh Baby" moment of the week, Chuck has.
I've got a few weeks ago we went to the Juno Cup with our episode with Jim Cuddy, and I'm
We
going
didn't
to
go to the Juno Cup.
Oh,
we
no.
we talked about it. We
at
went
length.
there in terms of like we talked about
One
it.
day I'm gonna get there. But anyhow, my oh baby moment goes to the Juno Cup, where I think for the second time in 16 years, just the second time, the musicians won the cup. It was great. I followed the whole thing along on Twitter and on Instagram. Toronto-based band Born Ruffians had just marvelous content from the whole thing.
Oh, yeah?
I don't know if you guys, they're big Leafs fans, worth a follow if you're a Leafs guy like myself. They're on Instagram, they're on Twitter, obviously, and all the social media norms. But no, it was very nice to see just the late game celebrations and how elated, a group of musicians who were able to beat, some retired hockey greats.
Yeah, good on him. Congrats to our good friend of the show, Jim Cuddy, on the big
How many
win.
points did Cuddy have?
I didn't see a box score. I just saw. Yeah,
you gotta have the stat line, bud. Gotta have the stat line.
Not a stats guy, more of a character guy.
All right.
Yeah.
Not a stats guy, fucking hockey DB, and
Yeah,
just
Playing the Elite
Don't you have a
Prospects
game
game.
called the hockey DB
no,
game?
it's,
that
it's
I
called the
heard
Elite
of?
Prospects
No,
game now,
no,
isn't
no,
it?
it's not the
it
Elite
is called-
Prospects
it's
game.
the Elite Prospects game. It
Yeah.
has to be.
Not a stats guy when it suits my narrative.
Yeah, it's pretty good on your narrative there. My Bob Cole, my oh baby moment of the week is actually going out to Ben Bishop, and it serves as kind of a nice segue here, because Bishop is currently like 3 games and a period of a shutout streak. The other night Dallas Stars were playing against, I can't even remember who, and he takes himself out of the game with a lower body injury during the first intermission, and Hudobin comes in. I think they ended up losing the game, but Bishop was still perfect shutout through when he took himself out because he was hurting. So he's day to day with an injury now, but right now has a pretty good shutout streak going. So I don't know where he's day to day. He could be back tonight and blow it, or I don't know. But seeing as we do have our guest on the show is
Wasn't
the current.
Boucher's 5 in a row though?
His is 5 in a row,
Yeah, that's insane.
which is insane.
So
but
this is the luster's off.
it's a little. It's totally gets an asterisk.
What if Gretzky missed 2 games of injured in between that 56-game point scoring streak? Would he still
I was
get
just
it?
wondering.
I think you got to go games played.
Is Hudobin,
I don't think you do.
where he came out of.
I think you should, but I don't think they do.
You
I
said
don't
he
think they
came-
do, and I think a couple people have said it's now like the streak is broken because he's out.
he came out of. Who's
But-
the goalie of record on that game? Because
It
it
should be
depends.
though, because
Yeah.
technically, if you allow it now,
Yeah.
you could just take a guy out to break the record and put him in against like fucking Florida on the last game of the year or something when the odds are much. You know what I mean?
Well, or the Ottawa
if you
Senators.
could just take a guy out and put him in.
Yeah.
Okay, a backup could do it then. You over
No,
the years
totally. And I think
strategically put a backup into 6 games that you probably are going to win, and he gets fucking 6 shutouts over the course of 6 months, and he does the same thing as Brian Boucher.
No, I don't,
think so.
and that's not what I'm
So
saying.
fuck Bishop.
That's-
Fuck him.
I feel like you're.
I'm just
I feel
kidding.
like you're.
Your invite on this
fuck
show
is
is
this
revoked.
shit?
I feel like you are slightly biased in this scenario. But what I also think though is that it's a little bit different than like a backup coming in for 15 periods over the course of 15 games or whatever the fuck it is. But as of right now, he's played 10 periods of shutout hockey. When he comes back, to me, his personal streak, it might not go in the records the same way, but that's still for him
Something
knowing.
for us to talk about, but it's not a record.
Yeah, the legalese here. If I put on my lawsuit here for a second, I don't think he gets
your good legal law.
Take off your stats suit and put on your lawsuit.
Off goes the stats hat, and
on goes the law denims.
I don't.
We're all wearing
various forms of denim here on a Sunday morning. I don't think, depending on how he came out of the game, I don't think he gets. I don't even think he gets the win in that.
Oh no,
case.
he lost that game too.
Yeah,
they lost that game.
Shutout,
but there was nothing on the stat sheet. Hudobin got the loss.
His shutout streak is done though. He hasn't allowed a goal.
Yeah,
but his shutout streak, I think, I don't know. I'm pretty sure that.
He's not on. Like that's the thing is Hudobin's a goalie on record.
Hudobin
took the loss.
Okay.
So Bishop, as far as the stats lines are concerned, Bishop is still 10 periods without allowing a goal.
If he gets this record, I'm putting 2 asterisks.
No, and I mean that's the thing, and I'm sure Brian Boucher has some thoughts on this, and I'm sure, and it's going to be great when we get to talk to him about it. And I'm so glad that it worked out because we weren't even aware of this when we booked Boucher for this week that this would be the case, and so it just really worked out cool. And it's worked out great, so I'm really excited to talk to him about it. But I think it's still just like, what the fuck, right? Like,
I forgot Ben Bishop was in the league.
Well, but I mean, he's been playing lights out. His save percentage is like, his save percentage is something like .933 or something like nuts. And he's been a big part of this Stars surge late in the season.
Oh yeah,
but,
for sure. Yeah.
But as of right now, with him hurting day to day, and it's just brutal to have somebody going for this great illustrious streak and then have something like, it's the most Dallas Stars thing that could happen this season. Like their season is, I think they're only second behind the Ducks in terms of games lost to games lost to injury.
Speaking of streaks, what was the baseball hitting streak? Is it Mantle? And how many?
Oh no, it's still
DiMaggio?
It's DiMaggio. It's like 45.
55 maybe, no?
I think it's 45.
Let's see. I'm just
because there's also
we're crossing sports here, but
there's also
DiMaggio.
Yeah.
Of course it's DiMaggio, but I forget. Because wasn't Gretzky's up around? Didn't they? Gretzky's point scoring streak was around the same as his hitting streak.
I'm not sure.
Not the same time of
definitely
era.
not the same. No.
I mean, I think they were up around 50 or 60 games.
No, I think DiMaggio's hitting streak is the 1941 hitting streak, 56 games.
56.
I think Gretzky's is 56 too.
And did you know that there is a fantasy game? And we can talk about this because
what's Gretzky's?
Oh, Gretzky's, I'm not sure. I'll check.
In my mind, I knew it was close. And
but did you know that there's actually a game online that you can bet on where you have to build a fantasy team and try to beat DiMaggio's streak?
Yeah, no,
and it's been going for like 20 years and no one's done it.
Wow.
Yeah. And you get a mulligan too.
Yeah, and no one's still been able to put together in fantasy. No one's been able to put together a 56.
I heard about this. I'm like, oh yeah, that's it. And you can pick week to week, Chuck. You can pick anybody to get the hit.
Yeah.
Right. So you.
Oh my.
I know.
Lord.
I know. So you get like, I can't remember so many slots, and then each night I can change my guy. I can take out if I think that Troy Tulowitzki is going to play the Jays and I got a good feeling that he might get a hit, then I change it. Right. I take no longer am I going to go with Aaron Judge. I'm going to change it this week to whoever I just said. Just smoked a joint.
51 games for Gretz.
51. Okay.
Oh wow.
But anyway, yeah, and it still hasn't been done, and it's like $1 million prize or something.
You can assemble a league to try to string
baseball.
56.
Yeah. In hockey, even I love Gretz the fact that he did it, but in hockey there is at the end of the games you're winning. There's an open net in a lot of those games.
Yeah.
So
Gretz
you can
29, I think, when you're 19,
like
something ridiculous.
But in baseball, so much you never get a gimme like that. If anything, the other way. If you get, you know what I mean, you could get hit by a pitch on the first fucking pitch, and you didn't get to see a strike.
Did you see? Here's my thing. You say you never get a gimme like that. But
it wasn't reach first. It was get a hit in 56 games.
Yeah.
Reach first is a little bit different because you can get a walk.
Yeah.
But you've got to make the ball. That's fucking crazy, man. When you think about it.
Yeah. 56 games. It's nuts. But did you see the in a women's league in pro women's softball in the States? There was a woman hit a home run cycle trickle. She hit a 1-run, 2-run, 3-run, and a grand slam in one game. Those were her four at bats. She had 10 RBIs.
All I want to see about that, because all these, what league was it? Where was?
Yeah.
I want to see relatively what, because if the scores are frequently 30 to 28, it means nothing. But if the scores are frequently normal, is it fast pitch or slow pitch?
Fast pitch.
Fast pitch. Okay. And is it college?
I think it's like the women's pro
So
league
it's a reputable.
in the state.
Okay. Women's pro league or women's college is. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't like the Dayton local.
No.
Fucking,
It wasn't like a
you know what I
fucking
mean?
beer league.
Chip
It was,
company fucking
it was,
softball league.
No, it was
United
it was
States Postal Service softball jamboree.
It was pro or college. I can't remember.
Well, you know,
but the only thing that kills me,
everybody's a fucking star on YouTube, and every league is a fucking reputable league.
You know,
Fuck that.
Instagram's down, so a whole bunch of people lost their modeling careers.
Yeah,
me included.
Yeah, but the only thing I have is like her last one was the solo home run, and my question is once she's already got 3 dingers on the day and is up for 9 RBIs, why are they fucking pitching to her? Like, I mean, I get that, you know, maybe the game's out of hand, and maybe they're throwing strikes to her because they know, you know, but still, like, again, it goes back to that compete level. But either way, it was cool to watch.
If I was a pitcher and I knew that someone had 3 and was going for it, then I would never walk him. Though I'd be the other way. I'd be like, I got to beat you.
Yeah.
This is a chicken shit way to come out of that.
Yeah.
Even if
I'd
they
walk
were,
him. I have no pride. I'd walk
Yeah,
him.
I like it though.
everybody's different. I wouldn't though. I've been in that position.
Yeah, no, and I get it. I get that. Like, you know what? No, fuck you. You got everybody else. You're not getting me. I like that.
When I say I've been in that position, I don't mean I've been in that position to be the guy hitting the fucking home runs. I mean the person to be pitching it in there and getting fucking lit up.
Oh man, I would have that
in baseball,
catcher.
yeah.
I'd have that catcher so far outside throwing those walks.
It's like
He'd be close to the dugout.
On deck circle.
He'd be closer to third, man. I'm lobbing those balls.
But now that we're talking about streaks and all this kind of stuff, you know what? Let's talk to somebody who actually knows a little bit about a fucking impressive streak.
Wait. What about my fucking old baby moment of the week?
I thought you said you didn't have one.
When did I say I didn't have one?
Before we started.
I said, well, I'll pick up on what you guys, but I did have something to say.
Oh, well, then go for it. Fuck, I'm
this
so
is
sorry.
like the 3rd fucking week in a row this has happened. Have you ever noticed that? It's like the fucking...
It's because you always say, I don't have one. And then I always forget, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry, buddy.
I want that to be my ringtone. Tier going, whoa. I want that as my ringtone.
And then you'll be standing next to him at Mana Bakery, and it goes off. All right. What's your old baby moment of the week, Tier?
It's neither old baby nor moment of the week, but it's something that I wanted to say, and it doesn't fit a slot.
Okay.
First of all, I'm going to ask you. So I ran into it when I was in Tri-Cities, just to revisit that again, because I made a note to myself, and I promised a fan that I would bring this up, because he made him and his wife, actually, I don't know their names. They are listening now. They knew all about the show.
That's great.
So
Thank
the
you for
guy said,
listening.
I want to know, Terry, you're a smart guy. You know, that's what he said to me. I disagree in many ways. You should see me do math. But anyway, what he was getting at was, he said, Terry, you know, you guys got a great show. Seem to be a smart guy. There's something that you never bring up. And I said, okay, what is it? And he said, I think you being immersed in hockey your whole life, you're not seeing it objectively. I said, okay, you got me. What is it? And he said, well, can you cross-check a guy in the face in hockey? I said, well, no.
Yeah, no.
You can't. And he said, well,
I'm going to say you can.
Can you? Okay, there you go. I guess there's two ways to look at it. Yeah, you get a penalty.
You can do it. Should you is a different question.
Well, can you? Well, you can, but it's a penalty, so you can't. It's not really within the rules that you can do it. You're penalized.
Yeah.
He said, okay, can I break my stick off over your ankle? I said, well, I guess like you can as a person, but you can't within the game.
Yeah.
It's a penalty. And he said, well, there's no fighting in hockey. And I said, well, yeah. And he said, it's a penalty. He said, I don't know why you guys are out. And he said, it's such a fast game and people are getting hit. He goes, it's not like the other sports. And then he brought up basketball and baseball. He said, there's fights in those. And he said, like, even if the penalty was 5 games, you're still going to get someone do it if someone runs Connor McDavid. So he's like, I don't ever see it being out of there. And I was like, because he said, it's not really in there. And he said, that's up to you guys. You guys are all choosing that to go out there. But he said, it's a penalty. And he said, so I never understood it being a fan. I thought literally when I heard that you guys were allowing fighting in hockey, I thought I was going to come down here and see everybody beating up each other.
Yeah.
Now, this was a guy that only got into hockey when the team went to Tri-Cities.
Yeah.
Him and his wife and their loyal fans.
You had said that it was a bunch of people who didn't know hockey who grew to love it through that team.
Through that team. And now they've come. So I was there in its like the birth of the team. It was like the 3rd year there. They drafted me. I played the 5th, 6th, 7th year. So now we're 30 years in. And the fans, like I said, are way more knowledgeable.
Yeah.
But he put it because, you know, he's seen it now. Now he's a pretty knowledgeable fan, but he had to kind of get into it. And everything that he'd heard about the game, he's like, some of it just wasn't true. So he's like, that's the first thing I heard is that we could come down here and see a bunch of people beating the shit out of each other because the sport allowed it.
Yeah,
He's
but
like,
you're right.
You don't allow it. Like he said, I might go to a baseball game and see a brawl, but it's not allowed.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I guess. So anyway, I just thought that was something to bring up because it begs, and, you know, to elaborate a little bit, look at basketball. Who was it the other night on the Raptors?
Serge Ibaka.
Yeah. So, you know, I mean, those were punches. Those are some big men with no equipment
that was a
on.
better fight than I've seen in a hockey game in a long fucking time, too.
And that happens how many times a year in basketball? 30?
Yeah.
Not from one team, but from like... So, like...
I'd say less than.
People...
way less than that.
I don't know where one punch is thrown. You know, I think I've seen it a lot.
I don't know. But I get the whole thing you're saying. It's that, you know, technically, because it's a penalized thing, there's no more fighting in hockey than there is offsides.
He's going to take his
either way,
game.
it's still not allowed and it's penalized.
He was thrown out. He'll take that and he'll come back. What happened this year? If he does it again, okay, he had 2 fights on the year.
Yeah.
No different than fucking, I don't know, fucking Milan Lucic.
Yeah.
You know, like, so when you think about it like that, it's just that the sport, and there's a grace. I don't give a fuck. There's a grace to hockey fighting that's not in everything else can turn into a street fight.
Yeah.
But hockey, over the years, the way it's evolved and the speed of it, and I know there's 4 officials out there, but good luck catching guys that can skate in the NHL. So they're going to get into it once in a while, and you're going to have to break it up. And from that perspective, I was like, you're right. Like, it's just always going to be a pendulum, but you're never, ever going to have a point that someone doesn't drop the glove and punch a guy in the face. Unless there's something unforeseen like the internet that comes in, you know what I mean? Like something that big on a hockey level that I don't really see coming. Unless they take hits out completely. If they go to 4-on-4 and have an Olympic-sized rink, maybe not. But anything that we know about the game, right, is that people tend to be physical. And if you run our guy, I'm going to find a way to get you back.
Yeah.
And there isn't fighting in hockey.
Yeah,
and it's
like fighting is something that is technically not allowed in hockey, and you're right. And I never thought about that. And it's just, and it's only starker, steeper.
That's all. It's just what level of fine are you going to give?
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like what level of penalty? Okay, so the instigator. So he's like, now, and the junior got the fights. So now I come down here. He said, and watch the Americans.
Yeah,
and you know there might be 20 fights in a season.
Yeah,
whereas like you would have 20 yourself back then.
Yeah,
but you know it's no different. It's just you chose to do it more.
Yeah.
And these guys are choosing not to, but it's still a 5-minute penalty, no matter what way you look at it.
Wow.
Like,
and no, but it is something I never thought about that way. And thank you to that fan. And if you're listening to us now, reach out and take some credit for the insight on social media. Hit us on Twitter or wherever your Facebook, wherever you're listening. And but that's a solid point that I never thought about.
We got philosophical here on the Bob Colo baby.
I couldn't believe it, guys. I was as blown away as you guys. Here we are debating all this, and in the end, it's not even really a debate. There already is.
There's already penalties for fighting. So what are you going to do?
I tell you, there was a great tilt in the LA Kings Florida Panthers game yesterday. Great tilt.
I didn't see the highlights on mute, but I don't know who was fighting.
Yeah, 2 heavyweights. It's the first time in a while I've seen, and it was, I think it was just off of a face-off or shortly after a face-off. And it wasn't a scrum. It was one of those, like, gloves go, stick go. Yeah. It felt like it was like 12 years ago. Like,
oh, fuck
yeah. It was a great tilt.
And by the way, I do have to say this. So a lot of people ask me why we didn't have Ryan Clough on, but he had some, concussion issues lately. And I don't want to get into that. I respect Chloe. I love his career. When we have him on, I saw him this weekend. He's doing great.
Glad to hear
He's doing great, and he can skate here and there, so it's not as bad as you think with the rumors out there. He just wasn't in a great situation, and with coaching, there's a whole lot that goes into that sometimes isn't the basis for post-concussion syndrome. But I just want, because I get a lot of people asking me, and he's a good friend, but I really I respect him, and I told him maybe 6 months down the road we can talk about your career. But right now, every second question to be like, well, why is your head hurt? Why is your, you know what I mean? And Chloe is too much I got too much respect for him than to do that. But I had to say that anyway. And
you know what? I think on that then, since we lost my Ben Bishop segue, we'll use that as a segue to hear from our sponsor, Head Check Health, and we'll come back and we'll talk to Brian Boucher.
Nice save.
Did that work? All right, guys, we'll be back in a minute.
Concussions are serious business. Concussions and post-concussion syndrome had a huge effect on my career. Whether you're a player, a concerned parent, a coach, a risk manager, or an executive, they're a major area of concern. HeadCheck Health has developed software and services that improve the way concussions are assessed, tracked, and managed at all levels of sport. Their goal is to create a safer environment of play by giving better tools to the individuals responsible for documenting and assessing concussions and providing better data to administrators to make real health and safety improvements. HeadCheck currently works with organizations across the country like the Canadian Junior Hockey League, BC Hockey, Rugby Ontario, the Western Lacrosse Association, and more to advance their concussion management practices. If you're interested in learning more how HeadCheck can help your team or organization, please visit headcheckhealth.com or email info@headcheckhealth.com. That's headcheckhealth.com or info@headcheckhealth.com and tell them TR sent you. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me big pleasure to have my good buddy and former Tri-City American, Philadelphia Phantom, Philly Flyer, Phoenix Coyote, San Antonio Rampage, Calgary Flame, Chicago Blackhawk, Columbus Blue Jacket, and Carolina Hurricane, and Swiss League elite player for a little bit, Brian Boucher. Bouch, it's great to have you on, baby.
I can't believe you got all those teams in under one breath. That's amazing.
Come on, can you, though? Can you? We haven't talked in a while, but did that really surprise you?
No, it does not surprise me that you'd figure that out. Nice work.
So listen, I'm assuming most people that listen to this show have heard me talk about the fact that once upon a time I went in the first fucking round of the NHL draft. But well, look, this is most people would probably know this by now. But Brian was one of three. Myself, Damon Lankow, and Brian Boucher, which is still a team record. I think maybe a league record. It's hard to beat that. 3 first-rounders in 1995. And we also had a bunch of other guys drafted. Help me out here. Bouch, Pavel Kriz went off our team that year. Boyd Olsen and Ray Schultz. Am I missing anybody there?
What about Dorian Anik? Was he drafted that year?
No, that was the year before. And not only that, you know why he popped into your head, and we'll get there too. Brian and Damon and I and some more guys on the team had Wayne Gretzky's agency. I had Mike Barnett, but Tom Laidlaw was yours, wasn't it? Or Mel Bridgman?
Yep.
3 of them worked together.
Laidlaw.
So, I mean, there's a lot to get to. But and the reason I bring that up so early, first of all, it was the start of your career. But we went through a lot together, and I often get asked about this. I'm like, Bouch, when was the last time we spoke on the phone? 10 years ago?
Oh, man, yeah. I think the last time we spoke was, I think I saw you in Calgary.
You did.
When I was playing.
You were with Ryan Clough.
Yeah.
For some reason, Chloe, San Jose must have played. And because you were playing for Calgary when I saw you. You ended up going to San Jose. But, Bouch, that was that was probably 11 years ago.
Jesus, too long.
So Terry, you didn't phone him on his birthday?
It's one of these things. There are people I call on their birthday, and they're not as close. For some reason, like people have asked me, and you go through something like that together, and it really was a ride. And I'll explain this. So Bruce wasn't with us. Me and our first year, 93, 94 was my first year in the Western Hockey League. Outside of the odd game as a 15-year-old fucking prodigy when I was 15. I played 3 games, boys. First shift, I fought Cale Hulse. He knocked the shit right out of me. But I just figured score sheet is better than no score sheet. So, but anyway, in 93, 94, and I have a moderately good year for a 16-year-old. I had 33 points, 176 minutes. Not that I fucking am counting or remember that. And Lanks had a decent year too, but the next year we got put together, and I don't know if because I was a centerman up until that point, and I don't know if it was the agency or who it was, but someone said, maybe you should go on the wing with Damon. You're good with the puck, probably good coming out of your own end. And Damon was a better skater and a better centerman. He really was. No fluke that he went on to do what he did. But we heard of this guy. So we didn't have you to start the year, Brian Boucher.
No.
It was really early, but I remember hearing about some kid from Woonsocket, Rhode Island, that was playing in Ontario. Now, please, before I get to my next the second part of the intro, what was going on there? Because I'm kind of foggy on it. You ended up with us, I think, in November. Yeah.
So I was playing Tier 2 for Wexford, the Wexford Raiders. I had made the U.S. national team, 17 team, and I decided to leave my high school and go play junior hockey because I wanted to go play college. And I was either going to go to Providence College or Michigan State. I was being recruited by. So I was playing Tier 2 in Toronto. and I absolutely hated it. It was a disaster. I was living in Scarborough, and it was just like, oh my God, I just couldn't. I didn't go to school with any of my teammates. I was homesick. I called my dad. I was like, I got to get out of here. And he's like, well, you're not coming home. And OHL teams would come and scout games, and they'd say, hey, are you interested in the O? And I was like, yes. And then they're like, oh, you're on the Western Hockey League protected list by Tri-City. I was like, who the hell is Tri-City?
Wow, this is news to me. Go on.
Get me out of Scarborough.
Yeah, so I was like, oh, my God. So my agent at the time was Tom Laidlaw, and I said, hey, what about the O? And he's like, well, they got you on their list. They want you to come and visit on a weekend when you have off. Would you be interested in going? I said, yeah, sure. We can go for 48 hours to keep our NCAA eligibility. So I flew there from Toronto. I flew to Washington State. My parents flew from Rhode Island to Washington State, and we met, and we got there. It was a game against Kamloops, Noof, right? So you guys are playing as like, Nolan Baumgartner, Darcy Tucker, Shane Doan, Jerome McGinley, all these guys that I've like read about in Hockey News, plus yourself and Damon. I was like, this is unreal,
They had won a couple of Memorial Cups right before that. So like, I was equally with you. It was my second year in the league, and I used to be in awe watching those guys. Jason Strudwick was like their last D, and he spent like 10 years in the NHL.
Yeah, exactly.
Tyson Nash was a fourth liner the entire time I was there, and he spent 500 games in the NHL. It was unfucking believable.
I know. They were a machine. And
I didn't know that was your first game.
And well, I got there to see the game, and I went into Dennis Back's office with my mom and dad, and they offered me a contract and told me that if I signed it, that I would be the starting goalie the minute I signed it, and so on and so forth. And so they said, go watch the game and let me know. We can talk tomorrow. So I watched the game. It was an unbelievable game. I think you guys won in overtime. Bunch of fights. It was sold out barn. It was unbelievable.
I thought Brad Lukowicz that game.
See, remember that?
No, I remember, Bush, you came in because my agent made it a big deal to me. I didn't realize until I'm putting it together as you say it now, but I do remember the game.
Barney was there. Mike Barnett was there at that game.
Yeah, he was.
And so, went home that night after the game, talked about it with my mom and dad, and I just made a decision. I said, I think I want to do this. You know what I mean? Like, I was rated early second round, I think, for the draft, and this was November, and I ended up doing it, and I ended up going in the first round. So it paid off as far as that's concerned. I mean, I think I always sit back and say, geez, I wish I could have gone to school and, gone that route and kill two birds with one stone. But at the end of the day, you do what you do, and you play hockey, and you go after it, and it worked out.
You always seemed like a school guy. I don't know, what schooling do you have, Bush? You got grade 12?
I did not. Yes, graduated high school, but didn't go to college.
Well, because not that hockey, first of all, sets you up. I mean, I went back, Bush, you know what I got? I got a fucking, wait for it, folklore degree. Okay, so, oh yeah, you know that shit, right? Like, I went back all happy in 2009. Ooh, I'm going to use, but I did get set up. I used hockey money to go. But I was like, I'm here now. I'm going to go in and get my degree. And I went into did an arts program, and I just, like, you take whatever you want. And I figured they were all like history, geography, folklore courses, because like it was kind of interesting. All the other shit, I didn't get one math course in university. But anyway, like, it was impossible for us back then. Bush, I took a couple of courses at the Columbia Basin College.
Come up and catch Terry at the Renaissance Fair.
Yeah, I mean, what am I saying? Like, it certainly... It was a fun degree to get, but it's not going to get me anything. If you haven't noticed, I've taken a different path. I'm not reading people fucking poems.
No, but you're like a professional storyteller now, so there's kind of that.
Exactly.
You know what? That's what a folklore degree is, right? So I mean, it's all oral histories and putting together stories. So
that's a good point.
Let's not knock the folklore degree too much.
Well, I love it, and it did help with the book. Bush, not that you fucking asked, but you're here now, and you're going to listen, motherfucker.
We'd like to welcome our guests. Welcome our guests who will sit patiently.
You listen. No, but I went back, Bush, and I didn't know, and that I had stories way back when, so I used to give the odd public speech, and then Ron McLean and a few more said someday, or you should probably write these stories down. I said, I do have them written down. So anyway, I was back in school when this happened. So I got an English minor. So I ended up, I think, gravitating because it is storytelling, and then English kind of helped me to put it together. But that's kind of where it went. But what I'm saying is that when we were back, that happened. And that time was everything. I mean, I went back when I was 30. When we were in, I mean, you're getting offered. I remember I thought about going to college. I wanted to, even when I was getting drafted. But then all of a sudden, you're offered millions of dollars, and you got to go out and work hard. And that's the part, like, which brings me to the next thing. We had to figure that shit out on our own, Bouch. Like, we didn't know that draft year. I mean, how crazy was it to all together be going through that? To me, I'm so fucking pumped that you guys did it with me, because I think it could have been discouraging at times, you know, when you're a little down or whatever.
Well, I think listen, I don't think I ever go in the first round if I don't play, you know, with you guys. I mean, scouts were coming to watch you guys, and I just happened to be, you know, a beneficiary of that, you know, and we had a good team. We weren't quite the powerhouse that Kamloops was, and it's unfortunate they were in our conference, but
it is.
I mean, at the end of the day, you guys were rated so high to begin with. You guys played in the prospects game. I did not, but, you know, not to knock me going in the first round, but there's no doubt that me playing on Tri-City with two guys that were rated in the top 10 helped me big time. And then on top of it, we didn't even get into it, your big overtime goal against Spokane in round 2 in game 7 to get us to the conference final. If we don't score that goal, I don't know if I go first round that year.
Bouch, well, that's a compliment. I really appreciate it. Now, listen, man, when we were back, okay, you know that goal, so that surfaced on the internet. I don't know when. I had a copy of it always. I used to show it on Friday nights. But when I went back, oh, of course. I mean, boys, this was the best memory. Like, it wasn't only like for me that year. What people forget is that, like, Bouch, remember every goal I got, so a goal went to the Todd Clausen Memorial Fund. So, like, I got a hat trick in Portland. I don't know if you remember, but Bob used to put me out all the time, and then everybody'd be behind me, and the bus drove up, and the fans were all over me, and put Terry out. I got a hat trick on an empty net. We kept scoring one goal. Like, it was magic. Remember, like, I was shooting it from the red line and shit. It was bouncing off the ref and going in. Like, it was just this magical train. And to me, what's great about it is that it wasn't this personal journey because of those guys who were in it, but that goal, it was a metaphor for so much. It was good personally, yes, but it got our team into the next round. It got us all noticed. I'd probably say the same, Bouch. I probably would have gone in the first round because we were rated pretty high. But if we didn't play them, the fans would, because we brought it. The next series, when we played Kamloops, they knocked us out in 6 games, but we won 2 in overtime. And we came at them. You played great. Me and Blanc did, and the other guys that got drafted. Who's to know if Sugar Ray Schultz would have gone in the 9th round or wherever he went, right? Like, so I think that helped everybody, and that's why, like, in my memory, it's a better memory. No offense to actually the act of getting drafted, because there was so much pressure involved. Like, I remember being with you in Edmonton, but like, it was. I remember, like, you know, the bus rides were more fun, and I remember that, you know, after that win, just, you know, all of us in the room, you know, ice and injuries, and just so happy to just have a chance to keep going. And you know, we could have folded the tent. We were rated in the first round. I often say to people, like, if you were thinking of it personally, you wouldn't give a fuck if the team won, because the year ended and we were going in the first round, but like, or fairly high. But anyway, so that was, it meant a lot to me. Now, Bouch, going back, I went back 2 weeks ago. So they honored, you know, you're one of the top 30 and 30. You must be. Right?
Yeah, I believe it was like last year or something like that.
It was last year.
Yeah.
So I couldn't get out, Bouch, and so so I got out this year. I went back this year, and I walked out, man. It was only me. Like, none of you guys were around. I got goosebumps. Like, I started to almost cry, like, because they played that highlight, and it just seemed like so long ago. It seemed like the same place, different time, which is true, but real similar place in real different time. It's not like I walked back, you know, or I went back 3 years ago, Bouch. Like, the last time I was there was like 2 decades ago. And to have things look so similar was almost eerie. Yet, you know, the town has grown up a little bit, but to be in that place without you guys was almost eerie, you know, for lack of a better word. But
well, if it was a little bit closer, I would have been there with you, but it's so damn far. You know what I mean? Living on the East Coast,
well,
man.
I know what you mean. You're in Philly. I'm even further than that. We're over on the Rock. Do you ever? I know you got here with the Philadelphia Phantoms. I think you did. Didn't you? You've been to Newfoundland.
Yeah.
And that's another thing. So, Bouch, and before I get into the pro stuff, what would be your favorite memory from Tri-Cities? I mean, I often said, talking to you now, it's just like we were on the bus. I never even worry about, you know, haven't talked to Bouch in a decade. Who gives a fuck? It's as if I was with you the whole time. And why? Like, we had such a close team, but what would it have been? I mean, I don't know. I really don't know. What do you think?
Well, I think you got to have guys that have good sense of humor in the locker room, because there is pressure. I mean, we are kids, and we're playing a kid game, but there was pressure because guys were rated for the draft, and you're playing major junior not because you want that to be the end of the road. I mean, this is just a stepping stone to get to where you want to get to, which is eventually the National Hockey League. So there's pressure, but you got to have good guys, you got to have team players. And truthfully, I mean, not sit here to blow smoke, but I mean, you go down as maybe the funniest guy I ever played with. And honest to God, I mean, I think about the stories on the bus, when you started doing the Pat Lawyer play-by-play, when the lights went out, we'd be on an 8-hour bus ride, and lights are out, everybody's quiet. And he waited till the bus was completely silent, and all you hear is the humming of the bus. And he gets into play-by-play of like our assistant coach and how he's attempting to become a fall guy and ruin a hockey game for his junior team. And he did this outrageous call, and he would go, lawyer, and
he fucked up again.
Exactly. And we'd all start laughing. And by the third time, I think you said lawyer crashed a fire truck or something like that because he was a fireman from Calgary, and that went over the line, and he came running to the back of the bus and wanted to fight you.
I remember
and you were
that
like,
shit.
And I think I
always took it too far at the last one. Well, that's why it was the last one.
But I think you actually acted like you didn't even know what he was talking about. He's like, I didn't do it. You were like, I didn't do it.
Did I? I just figured deny. Oh wow.
But we've got at least 10 of those stories from junior that make me laugh when I think about it. I think about the Jerry Lewis telethon.
Oh, Jesus Christ!
Yeah,
and I would sign, boys. We
like Jerry Lee Lewis, like great.
We would
Jerry
have to
Lewis.
answer phones and shit. No, the Jerry Lewis telethon. You must know what that is.
No, Jerry's Kids. Come on, man. You gotta know Jerry's Kids, man. You gotta be better than this.
Bouch, you remember?
Oh man!
Can you remember? And then people would come up and ask for autographs. And each autograph I ever signed, guys, in Tri-City, I put a different nickname. So I would put like Terry the Tarantula Ryan, Terry the Tornado Ryan, Terry, and then just by my third year, it was like Terry the Maniac from Down Under Ryan. It was just anything. Terry, Funky Cole Medina Ryan. It was just cut. So
Funky Cole Medina.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, all these have been used. So when Bouch, people were coming back to me with sticks and shit to sign again from years ago, and each one, I swear to fuck, I was like, if the boys were here now, they'd be fucking howling. Here you go, Terry. Terry, Wild Thing with a Hammer, Ryan. What the fuck was that? Wild Thing with a Hammer? Because I must have used Wild Thing already, right?
Well, it's funny because I see Dennis Bayak sometimes because he does the Winnipeg Jets TV, Christ. Right?
Yeah.
And I see him. As a matter of fact, I'm going to see him tomorrow or Wednesday night. I'm doing a game in Anaheim.
Please say hi.
Anaheim. I will. And we talk about the signing that we had the one day at some dealership, and where we signed the posters, and I can't even repeat it. I
can't. Well, there was just a jackass. There was a jackass, and I called him. Yeah, well, amongst other things, I call him a fat ass. Yeah,
right. But when Dennis came in the next day with that very poster that was signed, and he flipped the table. He's like the nicest guy in the world. Like he would you know what I mean? To see him lose it like that was so funny.
Took it over the line again. Yeah. Oh yeah, but so most of the time, guys, the vast majority it was comical. But this dude was a dick. This dude, you know who that was, though, Bouch? It was one of those guys that used to come up and ask for 50 cards signed and none of them personalized.
I saw a dude pull that on Guy Lafleur once, and it was Lafleur was having none of it.
It's
Lafleur was like, "Are you serious?"
And we were at a car wash or some shit. Most people there, they're happy. They love the Tri-City Americans. They didn't realize how much money might have been in it for me and Blancs and Bouch, like first rounders that year. This guy totally knew. And there was these cards called Signature Rookies, which forced me. We signed deals with Signature Rookies. Remember, Bouch, for like 25 grand. Yeah. And I spent it all. Went out and got a credit card, boys. I spent it all before it came, and I had to pawn everything off. I pawned off my Dodge Lancer. I pawned off all my CDs, and I swear to God, I had to pawn it all off because I owed like all this money. because they went under. And this brings us to the hockey card chat. And anyway, I call Barney. I'm like, you got to do something. He's like, what the fuck? He's like, how much do you owe? And I said, I don't know. I was supposed to get 35 grand. So I figured I could spend that, like whatever I got. So remember Blanc bought a Mustang or something?
Yeah.
And anyway, Boucher.
I think I only got $2,500 because I went and bought a Chevy Celebrity Eurosport with no front bumper for $1,500. I think I was good.
Well, no, what happened, Boucher? This is what happened. That fucking company was called Signature Rookies, and that's why, guys, in those cards, if you ever look at them, there's no crest on the front because they chose to pay the players rather than the league. Terrible cards.
Yeah.
So they would pay the players. So like at the beginning of the year, they made this deal with all of us. But Mike Barnett got it from me. I didn't know what it was. Most of the players in the Western League didn't know what it was. Mike Barnett called me and Lanks and Boucher, and Surrey had it. It wasn't only for our draft year, but it was for these prospects. So what happened was you had to sign like 10,000 of each card. So we would get these sent to us and sit there all afternoon. I'd have the boys going in like, that's why my signature is so easy. It looks like 3 7s if you look at them back then, because I'm just going through.
You'd sign them all at once? You like
no.
Okay, I was going to say like, we wouldn't be able to take a pass the next day in practice.
They'd give us like 3 weeks, 4 weeks. I used to take them back in the summer and have my whole family doing it. Like, so. Oh yeah.
Seniors just signing
it was
his
just
name.
Too hard. It was too hard. Well,
it's the same name.
Because this is what happened. It was
name.
like 10,000 of this card, 10,000 of that, and then like 25,000. They say right on them. You can Google it, and you'll see like one of 25,000. Well, I was supposed to sign all those. So now, before any of that happened, the company, because they had bonuses. So at the beginning of the year, of course, they're giving like the same thing to everybody. So like if you go in the top 10, you get $50,000. So like they wouldn't give that to Brian Boucher because he was rated first, but they figured giving that to me and Lankow was fine. Or like if you were the MVP of the CHL All-Star game, now 9 out of 10, that's not, well, 39 out of 40, that's not going to happen. But I got real lucky this game. Like I said, that was the game I went around David Ling, right? A fucking forward is caught on D that never played in the defensive zone the whole fucking year. So I get this MVP of the game and they owe me like 20 grand. Right, like that was the deal.
So did you sink a company, TR? Is that what you're telling me?
Well, it was. I think they just must have had bad. It wasn't just me. It was all kinds of.
I think their photoshopping skills sank that company, man. I'm looking at these online.
Told you, it looks horrible. But
These
it was
are terrible.
Like
cards.
Ginla had them, and
They're
like
terrible.
everybody in our, all of a sudden, and it was a lot of guys from IMG. Like our agents set it up. Well, it wasn't their company. I don't know where the fuck it came from, guys, but that was the deal. And anyway, they went bankrupt after the fact that I had hit all these fucking bonuses. So I think I got $35,000 coming to me. And I'm like, when's the money coming? Bad news, kid. I'm like, what? I just went out and got my fucking credit card. How does this work? All I know is that I just went through the mall. I bought one of the boys a fucking quad and we took it to the rink. Like, it was just like money. I didn't even think about anything. I was like, oh, and then next year I'll be in the NHL. So, okay. So it's just money. Like, I didn't even think about it. Not to be cocky. I never even had a job. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I just thought I'm getting this money. So, yeah, Boucher, I went and fucking, I pawned off all my shit at Marky and Nancy Eby's. I went to the paper, and finally I was selling my Dodge Lancer, and fucking Bob Laux called, and he said, come to the rink. Remember it was that game that Lanks didn't show you, showed up late of Spokane, and I had signed. I had to go over to the fax machine and sign this deal, and the first thing it said, your first installment will be $150,000. And then they said, when? I said, when am I getting it? And they said, like, by, say, April or something. I said, perfect. I can take a few guys on the cruise. That was the honest fucking, I'll never forget it. I didn't realize anything about, like, taxes. I didn't realize that got taxed. My bonus, Boucher, if you don't mind me asking, what was yours? Like, I don't give a fuck. Like, 800 or something. It had to be.
I think I signed, it was $650.
$650. Okay. Well,
yeah.
I got a no big fucking deal here, but I got a 1.25, but it was for 2 different reasons. Mike told me, he said, you never really know with Montreal. It might take longer to make, so good money up front is okay. And it was a big tax, and I still didn't know taxes. I thought it was like going out and buying a fucking sandwich and getting taxed 14 cents. I had no idea how taxes worked. And in fact, in Alberta, there was no tax at the time. Remember, in Tri-City, we could just say that. We could just go out and buy something and say, yeah, we're from Alberta. It was chaos. That's another whole thing. Can you remember that, Boucher?
I can, yeah. I mean, what did you buy? You bought like some Camaro, didn't you buy a Camaro right off the hop? Yeah,
I did. I went out, Boucher, with fucking 30 grand cash. I didn't know what to do. No one told me about leasing. No one told me about like secondhand. When I drive it off the lot, it's going to be a lot less. And you know why I did it, Boucher?
Because you could.
I went across. Well, I went to one dealership and I asked the guy, could I take a car out? I think it was a Mustang or something. And he said, no, we only want serious bidders. Because I guess I was, because of the way I looked. I was young, I guess.
So
and
you bought a Camaro for cash
so
out of spite?
Yeah. No, I'm not kidding you. A lot
That's
of that
amazing.
was, well, I knew I was getting a good car, and I
That's my
liked the
favorite story you've told
convertible
yet.
Derek Sanderson did the same thing, I believe, with a Rolls Royce when he just signed with the WHA.
He may have.
Yeah, he walked in and he said, "How much is that car?" And this is Sanderson. He had, the haircut you couldn't set your watch to, and a mustache that just wasn't. He didn't look like a guy buying a Royce. And the guy's like, "Oh no, you go away, sir." Yeah. He came back with a briefcase full of money.
Well,
meanwhile, TR's doing the pretty woman. It's just like you
pretty
work on
much
commission,
it. No,
right?
I got Mark Hurley came with me, and I made sure that Buddy saw us. Like I knew I was getting something, and I knew I couldn't get a Viper or something like Lanks because I didn't want to drive into camp and everybody. That's a thing, right?
Yeah.
That's a thing. At least at the time it was. Now I don't know if anybody gives a fuck. But at the
No,
time,
I think you could come in. You could come in with a private airplane now, and it'd be acceptable.
I know, Bouch. What happened?
We cared so much about that. Like we were like, oh, we want to be confident, but we don't want to be overly cocky, so that guys give us a hard time. I don't know. It's a different time now.
Do you think it's different though, Bouch? Because back then, sometimes I say it, and I'm not saying that we were all boozers. We hung out. You're definitely not a boozer, but I mean, and at the time, none of us really were. We'd partied once every 2 weeks. Like we'd have beers at someone's house. I never went to a bar in Tri-Cities. That's the truth. Not that I remember. It might be Applebee's or something, but we didn't go to a bar.
But you couldn't drink there because we didn't have fake IDs, and everybody knew who we were, so it was impossible.
That's true. But this is the thing. When you went pro, I found, which is a lot. Here's a big difference. We all had. I was kind of like, if I didn't go out for a couple of beers at least and a steak with Mark Recchi and company, whatever the leaders were on the team. Like when I was up in Montreal, then I would have had to answer to somebody. I'm not saying they would have fought me or anything, but they would have been really upset and said, why didn't you hang out with the boys last night? Now it seems to go where I don't know if that's frowned upon. And I'm not saying booze, guys, like in the case of get shit-faced. I'm saying go to Mort's Steakhouse or something and have a fucking steak.
Yeah, and have a glass of wine or beer,
Right?
Yeah,
and more people seem to do that together, whereas now it's crossing over sport to sport about MX on sport or fucking Fortnite time.
It's
funny.
Exactly. The Jays announced that today, and then there's a story about Carlos Santana beating the shit out of a TV because in the clubhouse last year because guys are playing Fortnite mid-game.
Just imagine though, Bouch, like, because we didn't really do that. The video games were there, not the online stuff, but like we hung out. I mean, you can comment on this. I don't know. We hung out more than anything. I remember, like, just if nothing, I'd go pick you and Stalzy up, and we'd drive around. It was something.
Well, we had a good system. Me and my roommate Tom Zavaduk, we had a system where we never went out together, and we covered each other for curfew. So we lived in a raised ranch. So you'd go out, you go halfway up the stairs to the backyard, and then halfway up the stairs to go up to the front level of the house, to the top level of the house. So what we do is Stalzy would be in the getaway car around the corner. Xavier or I would bring the trash out at night and tell our billets, say, oh, just bringing the trash out. You know what I mean? Meanwhile, one of us is sneaking out, and away we go. And then we'd rendezvous with you and Stalzy. Exactly.
And we'd go to the strip club in Pendleton once in a while. I remember that being a thing like the last half of our first or of our second year. You're going down. So Pendleton boys, the Oregon border was only about 10 minutes away from Tri-Cities. And Pendleton was just across there. And there was a place, honestly, guys, it looked like this studio. Like it was small. I mean, it didn't seem like much of a bar, except there was people stripping in there, and they were serving beers out of the closet.
Was there goalie gear hung up?
I don't like the way you guys are talking about my basement right now.
Well, I'm telling you this. This would have been a step up.
Well,
but it was a great
thank
time.
You. I appreciate
and we just
that.
And Stalzy just thought he was the big wheel.
We had fun though. We hung out. You know what I mean? Like and even if we did have a party, like you said, it was once every 2-3 weeks, and you would call and ask Lauxy for an extended curfew, like 10 minutes before. You would do it 10 minutes before the curfew was to be set. There's no way we could possibly all get home, and you'd call him and ask him for Extendamix, and you'd say it like in a real like nice way. You'd be like, Lauxy, the boys are together. We're having a great time.
They're all looking at me on the phone now, counting on you. Go ahead.
All the boys just, we need this. It's camaraderie. Give us 30-minute Extendamix. And he'd say, all right, God damn it, Terry, that's it. You know what I mean? So he'd give us the 30 minutes, and then you do it again. Clockwork. 10 minutes prior, you'd ask for another extended mix, and then before he'd lose it on you and say,
I remember going. I could only use this once in a blue moon, but I looked at the boys. I'm like, make it fairly loud, and I'm going to act like he says 2 hours. Like I know he's not going to say that. Lauxie said, okay, Lauxie, 2 hour, perfect, boys. Hey, 3, 2, 1. We love Lauxie. We love Lauxie. We love Lauxie.
If there's any junior players listening
to
to
off
this.
the hook. And we'd be in Pasco, Washington.
And that's the thing that they're missing out with text messages. You can't do that with a text.
I was going to say, if there's any junior players listening to this, I really hope they're taking notes.
Nah, you can't get away with it the same way with text messages. No.
But you know, that was the other thing. We never took it too far. When we came in the next day, he knew it, but we really kind of treaded the line. But we didn't have, like, for example, Bouch, when I played in Red Deer, you know, it was 18 to get into the bar. And a little bit, you know, Red Deer was on the way somewhere. It's Calgary to Edmonton, so there's a lot. Transient is the wrong word, but what's the word? Like, there's just a lot of people coming and going. Whereas in Tri-City, you're kind of there. Like you said, if we went out, they recognized us. There wasn't too many people on their way anywhere. It was a little slowed down, and it was, but it was, anyway, a beautiful place to play. And I'll move on for that now, unless, do you have anything to add, Bouch, about Tri-City?
No, it was a fun time. We had great teams, except you didn't come back my last year, which sucked because we were in last place. We had Scott Gomez on our drafted list. He never came, and I basically sat there and suffered with like 16-year-olds on that team. And then miraculously at the trade deadline, you end up in Red Deer and you play there. And I don't know how that worked out, but thanks for doing that.
Well, this is the thing. I've often said it, and I felt bad at the time, and part of me still does, because I loved Tri-Cities like a second home. But, you know, I was in Montreal to start the year, and then they told me that I wouldn't play that much, and I had a bit of post-concussion syndrome from the year before. So, not that had anything to do with it, but that's why I didn't play much. So I was in Montreal. I only played 3 games up to February, and then they said, you know, now that you're feeling pretty good, we're gonna send you back. But Tri-City are in last place. Where do you want to go? So. I knew Aaron.
No hard feelings. It's all good.
I know, but you guys I was talking to you guys every night on the phone. You and Mike Hurley and the boys. I remember that. I know. So this is where I kind of, I guess, our careers not went different directions, because I remember running into a few more times, and one I'm going to bring up in Philadelphia in a couple minutes. But how was for you the transition? For me, the transition to the AHL, say, you know, to go pro, I found it was more business-like, but just the whole NHL camp, your whole experience with you're wedging into the Philadelphia organization. How was that for you, Bouch?
It was. I was really fortunate because the Phantoms, Philadelphia Phantoms, played in the old Spectrum, and so we were in a major league city, right on the side of the Flyers, and it was exciting, you know what I mean? Like, we had sold out crowds against Hershey Beers, 17,000 fans come watch an American League game.
Yeah,
so
I love that. Yeah.
it was pretty awesome to be in that setting. And then on top of it, you know, the Flyer brass would be at all your games. So there was really, unless you got on the road, they didn't come. But, you know, at home, they were at all your games. So there was really no hiding. It wasn't like you were put in some outpost, you know, like maybe where you were, like in Fredericton, and you know, is Montreal really watching tonight? I don't even know if they are or aren't.
Not most nights, no.
Right. We knew, like, our assistant GM was at every game, and sometimes our GM was at the game, you know? And so that was pretty neat. And we had a really good team. We had, like, honestly, my rookie year with the Phantoms, we ended up winning the Calder Cup, and I didn't even play in the playoffs. I think I played 2 games in the Calder Cup playoff run. It was Neil Little who played, who was unbelievable.
Little.
Yeah.
Oh, he's
944 though is not too bad.
Yeah.
Well,
Bouch.
no, but I think I played 2 games.
Yeah, it's
though.
2 games. It's 2 games, 2 goals against, 944.
Yeah, I mean, one of that was mop up duty in Game 5 against St. John. We got blown out, and I played the 3rd period. But anyhow, the point is that we had a really good veteran team. We had, like, our captain was John Stevens, who was, you know, just fired coach from the Los Angeles Kings. We had Jimmy Montgomery, Mike Maniluk, Neil Little was in goal. We were tough. We had Jeff Staples on D, Dave McIsaac. I mean, we were a team that either we would beat you by outscoring you, and if we didn't outscore you, then we'd beat you up. So we were like the old school Broad Street bullies. And so I grew up in that environment. It was just an awesome, awesome thing. Flyers lost first round that year that we went to the Calder Cup finals. So the fans kind of jumped on our bandwagon and came and watched us in the playoffs. And we were the toast of the town, or at least we thought we were. and then the next year I played even more. I had a couple injuries I had to deal with, a couple knee surgeries, and then after that I got to the Flyers, and so it was just a real great transition to be part of a great organization and have it all in one spot and not have to move, because I was right here in Philly.
Well, before we get on to your Philly times, I know you don't remember this, Bouche, and you know what? We went out one time in Philly when I was with the Fredericton Canadians. I don't know if you were with the Flyers yet or not. I can't remember, but I'm going to tell you, I don't even know where we went, but it was a strip club. It was. Everybody was going there. I remember we went.
I'm sensing a trend here.
I know. I'm just weird because I don't think Bouche is a strip club guy. I'm definitely not, but it seems back then we certainly went a lot, didn't we? I guess the early 20s. But we went there, and everybody was going there, though, on my team, and a few guys on the Phantoms. But anyway, and you and Lanks was there for some reason. So maybe it was by the time he got to Philly. Maybe this was when I was with St. John's. No, it was definitely Freddie. Because this is what happened. So I broke off from you guys, and I was getting a lap dance. And do you remember the name of the strip club in Philly?
The one strip club.
Drawing a blank.
The one that we would have gone to. And I don't want to get you in, because you didn't do anything wrong here. I know you're married with kids and everything. This was a long time before that. And I'm not going to go anywhere bad, but just to let you know what happened to me that night. So we had gone out, and we had a pretty good time. Before I left, I got a lap dance. So the girl goes, yeah, well, you play pro hockey. I was like making it obvious. And I was like, yeah. And she goes, my husband plays hockey, or my boyfriend plays hockey. So I said, oh, okay. So, well, I said, I play pro hockey, like, come on. So she's like, so does my boyfriend. And I said, oh, Jesus. Yeah, okay. Well, who does he play for? She said, the Philadelphia Phantoms. And I said, well, who the fuck are you talking about? She goes, Frank Bialowas. And I said, oh, Jesus Christ. So I honestly, I nearly had. So the reason I say this too, boys, is someone suggested a Frank Bialowas story.
Yeah.
So Frank the Animal Bialowas was one of the toughest players to ever come down and to ever enter the American Hockey League. And he also, I grew up kind of watching him because he played for the St. John's Maple Leafs. And if there was only a few guys that I was like afraid of. I'd try to not make it look obvious, and I'd fight him if I had to, but just afraid that they're probably going to do something I'm going to get hurt. It's something, if I don't at least fight them, I'm probably going to get slashed over the ankles or bird dog type stuff. So we come out for warm-up the next day, Bouche, and I don't know how much truth was to it. And I just kind of trying to slough it off. And Frankie the Animal is standing at the red line with no tape on either end of his stick, and he's just leaning on it, staring at me. Are you kidding me? So, and I'm going like, what? And I'm talking to him. He doesn't say anything. I'm terrified. Like, this is a realm I've never been in. Like, just this total stare down. So I'm in the room, and the boys are like, what are you going to do? I'm like, well, I got to fight him like right off the bat. I don't want to play the whole game like this. I'm going to throw up on the ice. Got to worry. So the first shift, or at least my first shift, I kind of went at him to hit him. This is on YouTube. This is out there. I'm not fucking making any of this shit up. We went out and he hit me with a couple of good ones, but I kind of got my head down, and he rocked me, but I didn't let myself go down. I'm in front of the bench. It looks like a pretty good fight. And we got over to the penalty box, and I just looked over him. I said, Frankie, like, I grew up, watching you. I watched you with guys like Ryan Vanderbush, Todd Gillingham, Gila Hu. I kind of mentioned some of the Leafs, and that were on the St. John's team when he was here, and he just looked over and he winked. He said, oh, man, that's my job. He said, no one wants to fight me, especially not in Philadelphia. So he said, it's not a big deal at all. I didn't know what to say, so I just said, okay, well, I guess you thank you, Mr. Bialowas. He said, yeah. And I called him Mr. Bialowas in the goddamn penalty box. Anyway, I've never heard of or seen Frankie again. I heard he's out in Western Canada. I don't know him that well, but if this gets back to him, cheers, my man, because he was one of the toughest motherfuckers to ever come down, like I said, to ever play in the American Hockey League.
Well, he was tough. He was tough, and I'll tell you, there was not a day that didn't go by my rookie year that he did not threaten to shave my head every single day at practice. and he never shot the puck below my nipples. That was a given. No tape on his stick. He had the Gretzky Joe helmet undone at practice and just would fire BBs like right up around my throat all the time. And if I even looked at him, he'd be like, "What's that?" And no, nothing. I got nothing. And he says, "I'm going to shave you today after practice." He told me all the time. He had me pinned down one day with the clippers right at my head, and he didn't do it. He was laughing at me. So,
Bouch, I didn't know this.
Scary man, that's for sure.
Fuck.
Oh yeah, he was.
Oh, it's great. And
Frank
you know
the
what?
Animal.
There's not too many people left with those. Like, we played with a lot of guys that had like names. You know, like Frank the Animal Bialois, who was the one my dad always brags about, Jimmy Pie Face McKenzie. I love, though, over the years, there's always these kind of, I want to see a little bit more of that in hockey, if possible.
I'm here for it. Yeah, I'm here for it.
I'm on board for some like solid nicknames for some just
Me too.
lunatics.
So, Bouch, you go into Philly. Now, the circumstances for you getting to start to play, aren't you hurt? And don't you, like, fucking stand on your head for a bit? I should have done my research on this, but I'd rather talk about it in, you know...
Are you talking about with the Flyers?
I remember, when you came in with the Flyers, didn't someone get hurt for you to get in to start, and then you you went on a tear a little bit of one, didn't you?
No, I was with John Van Beesbroek. Ron Hextall retired that summer prior, so it was basically the backup job was mine. I was with John Van Beesbroek, and it just happened over time. There really was no injury. I just played well every game, and I think they felt like I was doing a good job. And towards, I would say, February 1 of that year, we started to do a thing. Roger Nielsen ended up getting sick and getting cancer and all that. So Craig Ramsey, interim head coach, and Rammer pulled myself and Beezer into the office one day and said, here's what we're going to do. He goes, I'm going to play you 3 games in a row, and then I'm going to play you 3 games in a row. We're going to do that for a little bit. And then when I get enough data, I'm going to determine who's going to be our goalie in the playoffs. So I was like, that's awesome. You know what I mean? And I think Beezer was like, this sucks, And so I was getting to play 3 consecutive games, unless you got totally blown out, but it never happened. We would play 3 and 3 and 3, and I played good and played even better down the stretch, and we started to win, and we were in first place. And then come playoffs, Rammer pulled me in and said, you're going to be our starter for game 1 of the playoffs. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe this, And so we played, who do we play the first round? Buffalo. We played Buffalo in the first round, Dominic Hasek. I think they were the 8th seed. We were the 1st seed. We beat them in 5. Yeah. And then we beat,
Jersey,
and then we
wasn't
beat
it? Didn't you beat Jersey or something?
No, we lost to Jersey.
Okay.
We beat Pittsburgh in round 2. Pittsburgh round 2, we beat them. We were down 2-0 in the series. We won game 3 in overtime. Andy Delmore, remember that name?
I do. Yeah.
And Andy Delmore scores in game 3 in Pittsburgh. We're down 2-0 going to Pittsburgh, and Delmore wins game 3 in OT. Then game 4 is the 5 overtime game that Keith Primo got the game winner.
Keith Primo.
And we win game 4, and that was a series. The minute we won that game in 5 overtimes, that was it. It was over.
Bouch,
we ended up winning that series in 6.
Listen, Bouch, if you don't mind me asking, and why would you? You agreed to come on the fucking show. The difference, so for me, the biggest difference I saw, there was players in the Western League that were as fast. There was I almost found, I could see. Like, it was no fluke to me that Brian McCabe became to be a good player. It was no fluke that Nat Dominicelli was fast in every league he went in. But the thing when I got up there was the speed of the passes that were coming to me, and that part of the game was so. If you as a goalie, tell me what you noticed to be the biggest difference. And you're getting into some serious time, and then you're seeing the NHL. There's not much better shots you're going to see than the NHL playoffs, bar at fucking Russia versus Canada in a final sometime. So how was that transition, and maybe it wasn't even shots, maybe it was the mobility in the net. What was the biggest transition for you?
Honestly, I just think it was about because I think back on it, I don't really have a clear answer for you. I think the biggest thing for me was just getting out of the awe stage where you're playing with guys that you grew up idolizing. For me, I was a big Canadiens fan growing up. So to be a teammate with Eric Desjardins and John LeClair was are you kidding me right now? I couldn't believe it. I needed to get over the fact that those guys were like guys that I looked up to, and I had to get into these guys are my teammates now. You know what I mean? And stop like trying to get their autograph and be more like. And be more like, hey, we're peers now and we're in this together. And I think once I snapped out of that, which was kind of early on in my Flyers first year, then I started to like really have some success. You know what I mean? But for me, I don't recall the speed because it was a natural progression going from junior to 2 years in the minors. I felt my first year in the minors to be a struggle because I was putting too much pressure on myself as a first round pick. I felt like I had to be, you know, some unbelievable goaltender. And in the end, I didn't even play in the Calder Cup playoffs. It was more Neil Little because I probably got ahead of myself. You know what I mean? And then I learned to slow it down a little bit. And I think in turn, I, you know, was able to get to the National Hockey League just through, you know, the natural progression of how things go. But, you know, once I was in the NHL, I think once just getting over that like off factor and not wanting to get guys' autographs and be more like I belong here. And once you feel like you belong here, then it seems to work out. And then I repeated the same issues later in the next year because I re-signed after that rookie year where I had a great year. I ended up re-signing. And my second year in the NHL was a disaster because I just simply put too much pressure on myself.
You would sticking with the Philly. You signed with Philly 4 different times, didn't you? Or like, I mean, you went back there 4 different times after going somewhere else. So,
yeah, 4 times.
I remember you, Bouch, and this, you know, I appreciate the compliments earlier, but I'll tell you this about yourself: you were lights out. You know it, but Bouch, like when you were on, when you were consistent, and back then in the fucking West, look at those highlights, Bouch. You're wearing fucking the pads you're wearing are tiny. You're having to react because you became like it's not like. You couldn't cut down the angles. You were great at that. You were a pretty big guy that could cut down the angle, but the gear that and even for that era, you were still used small gear.
I did, yeah.
You did. So you were kind of reactionary a lot of the time when I'm not saying you didn't have to be, but you really, really relied on that. It wasn't anything to you. I remember you saying, I'd rather my pads be comfortable than fucking big. And
right.
You know, that was it. So I remember you going on a few tears. The first one, I'm going to gloss over because I think people know that you've got the record for shutout time. We're playing with Phoenix 5 games. Was it, Bouch? 5 games straight?
Yeah, it was 5 straight, 5.5 overtime. Yeah, like 3:30, I think it was. Yeah.
And I will go back there, but I know what you're going to say.
Yeah, we're going to go back. We're going to talk about that a little bit, guys.
But because of time, I don't want to get. Put it this way: I know people know about that. And I know what you're going to say. You're going to say that you had a great team, and you know it wasn't. You know they kept him out there, and everybody can get lucky. But you know we'll give you that opportunity in a little bit. I want to know about the streak you went on. I flew up to see you, Bouch. I don't even know if you know in Montreal. You were hurt though. Asham was on your team, Philadelphia, when you guys went on the run, and I think it was all 3 goalies. Wasn't it Leighton, yourself, and somebody else was like hurt 4 different times, and you all came back in, and you all stood on your head at different times, and Philly got to the final.
Yeah,
Bobrovsky, wasn't it?
Was it?
No, that was the year before Bob. We ended up so Leighton got picked up on waivers before Christmas. I got hurt right before Christmas, and Leighton played. We had been losing. Ray Emery was the initial starter of that team. It was me and Ray Emery. And Leighton picked up on waivers before Christmas. He came in last game in Tampa before Christmas, won the game. He went on like a 7-game winning streak at that point and never gave up the net. And come mid-March, he sprained his ankle in a game in Nashville, and now they got to turn to me because Ray had this hip injury that he was done. And so now I hadn't played in like 2.5 months, and they're like, here we go. We're right in the middle of a playoff push. And I kind of struggled at the start, but I kind of figured it out. And we got in that year on the last game of the regular season, a shootout win against the New York Rangers. Olli Jokinen was the guy who shot it. He did like a little Dean Youngblood down at the other end where he's circling the circle, came in, made the save. We got in on the last day and ended up going to the Stanley Cup final. And I beat Jersey in round 1 and 5. Then I got hurt in round 2 against Boston in game 5, I believe it was. Leighton got back healthy just that day. He just got cleared from his ankle injury. He came in, mopped up a shutout, and we came back against Boston in that series down 3-0. And we were the second team, I think at the time, to do it, or maybe the third. I think there was the Leafs and the Islanders that did it prior.
Yeah.
We were the third team in NHL history to come back from down 3-0. Then we beat up Montreal because they were done. They beat Washington and Pitt that year, and Halak was unconscious. So we got through Montreal easily.
I went up
and then
to
it was
watch
Chicago.
that.
And then it was Chicago. It was Chicago and Philly in the final. I came back for that final as a backup. Picked up 2 losses in relief. Add that it was in relief. I didn't start those games. And Patrick Kane, the game winner. If you remember that one, where nobody knew it was in the net.
The most anticlimactic.
Yeah, that was when Chris Pronger was fishing all the pucks out too. That was when he was hiding them away.
But Bouch, fucking, you got into a Stanley Cup final. I mean,
yeah, that was cool.
So lots of great experiences. And you know what? I'll let you guys wanted to ask him about that shutout streak. So go ahead before.
I know that, I assume this week, especially, your phone's been kind of going mad with people asking you about it. Because even when I was just kind of doing some extra looking up on it, I see you saying the NHL.com Centennial story about it. That anytime someone gets 2 or 3 going, you start getting all kinds of text messages asking you what you think and all this kind of stuff. How do you feel about Bishop's lower body injury right now?
Well, the streak is intact, and I got a lot of heat because I like to play around, and I say when it gets close, I bring out the voodoo doll and stuff like that to kind of jinx the guy who's chasing me. But I never wish injury on anybody, and he ended up getting hurt, so I got a lot of flack for that one. But as far as I'm concerned, the streak is still intact. He's still got, shutout minutes consecutive. I know it's not consecutive for the team, but as far as I'm concerned, if he gets it, it counts because
Asterix.
it's consecutive. Well, maybe an asterisk.
Yeah.
I knew you'd say that anyway, Bouch. I knew you'd say that.
I'm putting 2 there.
That's the way you are.
But my thought on it too is that it's going to be hard for someone to come back from an injury and maintain it again. He's got to get another 100 minutes.
What if he comes back next season?
Guys,
what if he comes back next season?
I don't think you can.
You're saying whether it should be or not. You're just looking at that case. But the thing is, I'll tell you why it shouldn't be. Because if it doesn't have to be in a row, then of course he's injured right now. But the next guy could just be pulled out and then be put in, and then pulled out and put in, and you could have a backup play 10 games during the whole season, play him against 10 shit teams. Or 10 combinations of 1 or 2, 3 shit teams. And then, do they have the record? Now, I know what Bouch is going to say. I'm just telling you the logistics behind what I'm saying.
I just think if a guy's playing that much shutout hockey, you got to play him more.
Yeah, but
really, I get your argument, but I think if that guy's playing that much shutout hockey, you just got to play him.
You could be selective. It's just why isn't that streak?
No, I think if he's starting games and he's the goaltender on record for him, then it's his personal shutout streak. Sure.
First of all,
I love how we asked Boucher and we all started asking here.
First of all, who
all started arguing.
What are we reporting to fucking Gary Bettman? I mean, I guess there's 2 different streaks then. One is consecutive and one isn't.
I've got asterisks. That's all I'm saying. Asterisks.
Speaking of streaks.
Oh, dear God. It's always a dangerous segue with Terry.
Bouch, I simply want to know, so you married now, right? You got a couple of kids, and you're living in Philly. Yep. Now, the broadcasting transition, I could always tell. Don't tell me that was a surprise to you. But did you have your eyes on that when you were 20? I could tell in junior you'd be good at that.
Well, I didn't know back in junior, but I had enough guys tell me when I was playing that, that were in the industry to tell me, hey, when this wraps up, you should probably think about doing this. And as I got later on in my career, it seemed like I had more and more guys saying it to me. So I was starting to get a little bit annoyed. I'm like, what were you trying to say? I should stop playing? Am I that brutal? But I've had a lot of people that have helped me along the way. Guys like Keith Jones, Bill Clement, Elliot Friedman, these guys all steered me in the right direction and put me in contact with the right people. And then getting an opportunity through, Comcast Sportsnet in Philly to NHL Network, and then eventually to NBC Sports. It's been a real nice transition and a way to stay in the game without worrying about who wins and loses anymore. As a goaltender, you take your losses home with you, and you have a lot of sleepless nights, and you beat yourself up over poor performances. And although I still get mad at myself if I have a poor performance, calling a game, it's not quite like, maybe giving up a bad goal that costs, your team a playoff berth or something like that. So it's nice to stay in the game. But like I said, I don't have to worry about I could care less who wins or loses the game, because I don't work for a team. I work for a national company, and I just hope to bring an enjoyable broadcast every game.
That's fantastic. And do you get back to Woonsocket?
I do. Yeah, I get back. My wife Melissa is from there, so all our family is back in Rhode Island. I got a sister that lives in Maine, so we go up there in the summertime as well. Now that I'm not playing, I get to go home for Thanksgiving and Christmas, which is when you play, you miss out on holidays like that where you don't get to be around family. So for all the times that I wasn't home for that stuff, I get to go home now and be around my brother and my wife's family, and kids get to see their cousins. So it's fun, and it's not too far. I mean, Philly, I say I live in Philly, but I live in South Jersey, which is just over the river. It's 10 minutes from Philly. It takes us 4 hours and 40 minutes to get home to Rhode Island. So it's drivable. So we get up there quite a bit. That's
fantastic. Who's the hardest shooter you ever faced? How about that?
Oh boy.
Now, I know that's going to be 2 or 3, so give me a few. Give me a few. There's no answer to that, so give me a few. That's a bad question.
Yeah, well, I think initially it was Al McInnes. I remember playing in the first time when he played for St. Louis, and again, the mystique that's around him, right? You grew up watching this guy, and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe he's winding up right now. I found his shot at the time to be way harder than everybody else's, because there were guys using 2 pieces and guys using wood sticks back then, so you could really tell the difference. The minute those synergy sticks came out in 2001, I believe it was, it changed the game forever. Now, honestly, everybody can shoot it. Really, everybody can shoot it. Funny, man.
No one talks about that enough. I often say that, too. I'm like, man, I go back, even I got some of the wood sticks, and I use them. I'm like, just, to test out. I got them in the closet. I just broke a few out playing pond hockey. I'm like, the shots got harder, Bouche, but no wonder we weren't doing toe drags and shit. I mean, you're carrying a weight around.
Yeah, but you probably could catch a pass, though. You know what I mean? You probably had a little more feel there. But
I'd prefer it if everybody had to use it. If like baseball, they said, you know what, everybody got to use it. But it's just that you keep thinking in your head, someone has an advantage. So I'm not going to sit here and try to make an argument for a wood stick and be even worse than my grandparents. But you know what I'm saying.
The only stick I ever used was actually the John LeClaire 50-30s in street hockey. They used to blow up. They'd actually you'd rip a slap shot.
I'm sure John LeClaire's were reinforced.
Blow up.
That guy's arms are bigger than my head. That was my first game against Philly, Legion of fucking Doom.
I've got a question for you. How comforting was it knowing sometimes Chris Pronger was in front of you, in front of that crease?
Yeah.
How was that
awesome.
I picture it being like a mix between having a safety blanket and a snowblower to clear your driveway at the same time.
He was awesome. He's probably the last guy that I could think of that really, he was intimidating to opponents. He got away with stuff in front of the net. Even when the rules changed, the referees still let him play the way he wanted to play. He could cross-check guys. He could punch guys in the face. He could spear guys, and the referee simply would look the other way. It was unbelievable. He had a knack for slowing the game down too. You know what I mean? He slowed it down to his level and had poise, and was great in the room. If anybody was getting ahead of themselves and getting cocky, he had a way of talking to guys that breaking balls a little bit, but also you get the message. You know what I mean? He was a great leader, a great player. I guess his career was cut short to a certain degree, but man, what a career he had. It was, to play with a guy like that, guys like him, Eric Desjardins, these guys make a goalie's life so much easier.
Yeah, and then you saw something that's crazy too about that Philly team that you played on that I noticed is the from your rookie year, so many of those guys have gone on now to be front office and coaching staff guys, right? I think there's 3 guys on that lineup that are active head coaches right now.
You got Tocchet, you got Berube,
and Brindamore, right?
Brindamore, Brindamore got traded that year for Primo, and then you got Recchi's an assistant with Pittsburgh.
So he is,
yeah. So is Sanderson, but I don't like talking about him.
Luke Richardson. Luke Richardson's an assistant in Montreal. Trying to think who else. Yeah, pretty. Yeah, I mean those guys. That I always said that was like the pinnacle of my career. My NHL career was in the first year. It was all downhill after that. I mean the guys that were on that team were, and Terry can attest to this because he talked about going to dinner with like Mark Recchi and stuff like that. Those guys pulled you in. Like they wanted you to be with the boys. Everybody was tight knit. The wives all got along. We always went out together. Everything was done together. It's unfortunate. We blew a 3-1 lead in that playoffs against Jersey in the semifinals, in the conference final. And I think we would have won the cup that year had we finished them off. That was when Lindros came back and got smoked by Scott Stevens in Game 7 in Philly. But that was the greatest year of my career, and that's just because maybe it was my rookie year and it was magical. But it was all downhill after that. Great group of guys on that team. Not surprised that a bunch of guys are now, NHL head coaches.
That was the Jersey team that went on to win the cup, did they not?
Yep.
You can't beat yourself up for losing to the cup winner, man.
Yeah, but we felt like we were going to win the cup. You know what I mean? Up 3-1.
Yeah, fair.
What could have been?
True. Yeah, that's the way I would look at it.
Yeah. If we had gotten through. Yeah. That's the one, right?
Fair enough. Safe to say, fellas, I won't be in that situation myself.
So, Bouch, and look, I appreciate your time. So, I'm going to wind it down here just with a couple of things. The first one, I guess, would be we've got to get back to Tri-Cities. We got to. This isn't a question, but I don't know how we're going to see each other, Bouch. I should probably do this. I'll phone you afterwards. But life gets in the way too often, and that was a great time that we had. I mean, I'd just like to see you, but I think that we should maybe organize, and I know the Americans, some people are listening. I'm going for a alumni golf tournament. Charity, we'll put it towards the Todd Classen Memorial Fund. If it's done, we'll set it up again. We'll do something, but I think we should go back, Bouch.
I will second that idea. That's a great idea.
And, I think so, too. I think it'd be great for all of us. But listen, I train a lot of kids that, in the summer that might want to go away and get a few tips, and some honestly just drop into my house and ask questions. And when I get goalies, I don't really know what to say to them. So the big thing now, at least with kids that I talk to, are like, should I be playing hockey all year? And I was always a no on that. I would play other sports. But I get that, you can't just go, okay, my skates are away in February, and I'm going to put them on in September because people do gain an advantage. But there's a happy medium. What is it for a goalie? Like, what would you think? How did you prepare? Because it clearly worked in the summertime and the off season.
Well, I think times have changed. I mean, I put my gear away too at the end of the year, and I would get into the off-season training and start skating again, probably late July or something like that, in preparation for going back in September. But I think nowadays for the goalies, they're so much better trained now. The kids, starting at probably like 12 years old, that I think it's important to play less tournaments maybe as a kid as you get out of the season, and maybe focus more on, individual training on, the technical side of the game, and really enhance your game that way. I think everybody wants to get recognized and get noticed at a tournament or whatever. And I think for a goal, it's more important that they really work at their craft, as a young kid. And that doesn't mean you have to be on the ice all day long. You work with a goalie coach, in a private setting, maybe with two or three other goalies, where you're getting a 1 to 4 rest ratio, and, just keep working at it. And I think over time, you'll just find yourself, as you grow into your body and you start doing your off season workouts when you turn, 15, 16 years old, that you're just going to continue to develop. And then by that time, you'll be a pretty good goalie. And then you can't go and play in these tournaments and be a guy that gets noticed. I think what I noticed is that some people just get ahead of themselves. They want to get noticed, but they haven't put the work in. So for goalies, I think it's important that they, now more than ever, because people have already set the bar so high about getting personal coaching and stuff like that, that if I had any money to invest, I would say invest in that versus going to a tournament that's going to cost you $2,500 at the end of the day to travel and whatever it is, the food. Take that $2,500 and spend it on coaching, Well,
look, no, I appreciate that, Bouch. And look, you were the ultimate pro to me. If I could pick one guy, honestly, I mean this, that you had a perfect mix of determination, focus. You had a bit of fun. We had beers here and there, but never took it too far. You were good. You managed your time well. You were the ultimate professional, and I appreciate you saying I was funny, but I mean, look what happened to me. At least I'm funny. At least I'm funny. Anyway, it was great talking to you.
You're a hell of a player, dude. Seriously.
Well, who knows, man? It's all good memories, and it's great talking to you again, Bouch, and we will talk again soon. Hope to see you in Tri-City, my man.
All right, guys. Yeah, Noob, great talking to you. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks, Brian.
Penny Posh, maternity wear reimagined, breaking the barriers of style, fit, and comfort that often leave mothers-to-be uninspired in their new wardrobe. Penny Posh's designs have reinvented a clothing category often seen as disposable, temporary, and unattractive. Well, not with Penny Posh. Check it out. A continuous fit maternity collection from bump to bundle and beyond. You can check them out on Twitter at Penny_Posh, on Instagram at PennyPosh_maternity, and of course on their website, www.pennyposhdesigns.com. Penny Posh Designs, maternity wear reimagined.
All right. So a big thank you to Brian Boucher for coming on, chatting to us. Full disclosure, because we probably gave it away during the interview anyway. We're recording the parts without Boucher on Sunday, talking to him Monday night. So we don't know what we're talking to him about. But we're back now thanking him. He hasn't been on the show yet. But chances are we definitely...
I bet he's friendly. I'm going to thank him anyway. We
definitely gave it away at some point during the interview, so fuck it. So we are here now to talk about our hashtag hot takes, because we got a few. We threw up a new fresh hashtag hot take graphic that's probably going to get us sued at some point. But we threw that up on the internet and had a bunch of people weigh into us with some hashtag hot takes. So we want to get to a couple of those now. And one of them kind of stems from a conversation that we had during the oh baby moment. And that's coming from PsychoMutt34, which is Robert Guy on Twitter. And Rob's saying, what are your take on fantasy, hockey, football, etc., where individual performances are more important than those of a team? Is it good for fan building or not? And so that kind of, when we're looking at like the DiMaggio streak, where you're trying to find baseball players to hit 56 and you can do whatever, but you're looking at individuals. Do fantasy sports where you are going for the stats of an individual versus a player, do they help build, the fan experience?
If I wasn't wearing my CBC shirt right now, which is dear to me, I would rip it off like Hogan and rant forever about this. I'm going to say no. It builds fandom. Yes, it creates an unrealistic expectation of certain players and certain players' value on a trade market and on a free agency market. And I have close friends who are these fantasy, real fantasy guys, and they give players certain, they give people who just are mediocre players, but they draw a lot of water because they're great in their fantasy leagues. And because of that, they always make these outlandish remarks like the Dallas Stars are going to be in the finals because they got a lot of Corsi guys. I think it creates an unrealistic expectation that a third line player. One guy I'm going to throw out there is one of my close friends who I've given a couple of DDTs and stunners to on this show. Gives Kevin Fiala, like he's got him up there in like Crosby territory because of his fan. Right. Yeah, I just think it creates an unrealistic set. Gross fans, yeah, maybe, sure. It drives me nuts.
What about you, TR? What do you think about fantasies where you're building teams with individuals that way?
That you're saying, does it help the fan experience?
No, does it grow a fan base if you're...
Does it grow a fan base?
Is it good for fan building or not, is what he's asking.
I don't think you could say a hard no on that, because any attention given to the sport, you, by osmosis alone, would probably absorb some knowledge.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, but not as much as you might think. Like, that's more for, yeah, like you said.
Well, I think it's changing the fan experience, right? Because it's not...
Yeah, you're right.
The guys that are the people that are coming into cheering for hockey that way, or cheering for football that way, are coming in...
I got into basketball that way, so I'm just trying... Like, I got into basketball a couple of years ago. I nearly had a job on Sportsnet, and I would have definitely had more gigs had I stayed in Toronto, because I was like part-time in there.
Yeah.
And so I had to keep myself on my toes because I didn't know a lot about a lot of the other sports. at least not enough to be an expert, right? Like I knew the good players and I knew Toronto Blue Jays and shit.
Yeah.
But then I started betting on basketball and baseball. I mean, I'm a fan. I knew the home teams. Everybody. I wouldn't be able to tell you what position all these, you know, great players are on some of the other markets, and I felt I'd be cheating the audience to not know about that if I was talking about it as an authority on TV. So I made myself, and the way I made myself do that was joining fantasy leagues and betting on Proline and shit, because it forces you to watch. And when you're really worried about your own ass, and you're the only money you're going to make, then you really, really do your homework, and then you start to see where. And for me, it was like I remember going to the racetrack. Yeah. Me and Ash used to do that. We'll talk about it one time. I lost big in a fucking at the Kentucky Derby. I thought I won. Anyway, yeah. When I say lost big, it was a few grand, but like to an NHLer probably not. But I don't care. $3,000 is $3,000. And I'll get into that later, but I couldn't believe how everybody knew, like, when you get down to the betting, they're like, you know, he's this on grass, and this horse is riding this jock, or this jockey got him today, and, you know, it's different on mud than grass, and there's all these. What I think in baseball, it can come down to that, like if a guy's playing in his hometown, you know, where he is at is in his contract status. How did he do in the minor leagues? How does he hit against righties and lefties? And baseball is one of those sports, and basketball too. Where stats,
so many of the sports are like that now.
Yeah, so many are. And stats can divide your opinion, like on the exact same issue. You can completely be convinced one way or the other just on the same shit that you're looking at. It's all interpretation. Yeah. So to me, a lot of it's bullshit because it takes you back to fucking where you were in the first place anyway. Yeah. But to answer your question, for me, it definitely helped me get in touch with the other sports. And once I did, I started gravitating towards certain teams. Then I'm like, oh, I love this Golden State run they're going on. Yeah. And, you know, you're either for or against those super teams. Yeah. But like, now I could be in on the argument. And then I'm looking at the Raptors, and I can compare Carter to Bosch to Leonard to, you know, and it becomes this whole expansive world that you're in, and you enjoy talking about it. For me, it helped. So I can't see how it could hurt in the long run. It might not help as much as people think, but whatever.
And I kind of agree there, because what's happening is it's just giving you a different fan experience where you're not necessarily rooting for your favorite team, you're rooting for your fantasy team. Yeah. And so instead of just being like, you know, living and dying on, in my case, the Bruins, or Charles' case, the Leafs, or yours,
here lately.
You know, or yours, the Habs. Like, instead of having that, like, that thing where you're just putting it on this team every year, you're building your own team, and you're looking at these guys' individual stats, and you're following the game a little closer, and because of all that, and so you're becoming more of a fan of the league and the sport than you are necessarily any one given team. And so I think in that way, yeah, you just become more knowledgeable about the game in general because you're trying to build this fantasy team.
Exactly.
And so I think, I think it is good for a fan base, and if you're not, if anything, it's probably better for your heart than it is, you know, anything else, just because you're not living and dying on that one team.
On the other
year
side
after
of it,
year,
guys,
you're building it yourself, and you're taking responsibility. And
I know people that just don't even watch any games, don't really know much about it, but they just look at statistics and they treat it like a business, like pure math. Okay, what's the odds? Law of averages says that this particular team will lose tonight, and they're favored 2.25. Then the odds are, and they do it that way. So sometimes it's merely just another way to gamble, using a very definitive, not definitive, but an interesting new method. But you know, they're no more into the game than I am into fucking finances.
Yeah, and I mean, like, that's the thing, is it's no different, really. I talked to this, like, you can always look at sports fandom and compare it to kind of anything. So the way some people play fantasy teams is no different than the way some guys play the stock market. You know,
I know a guy with spreadsheets and like different tabs.
Some guys go big. Some people go big into that stuff, and some people are just kind of cursory and like, I'll throw some on Apple today or whatever the fuck it is. And it's no different than, you know, I've said before about, you know, somebody was given a coworker, one time I was playing hockey, and some guys were giving a coworker shit because he likes LARPing, which is like live action role play. And I'm like, motherfucker, you were just wearing a Sidney Crosby jersey playing hockey. Like, how is that any different than LARPing? Like, really, let's talk about that. And so sports fandom can kind of fall into these things. But yeah, I think that fantasy hockey or fantasy football or whatever, all it does is just give you more of an investment in the overall game than just how your one particular favorite team might do on a season.
Compare it to anything?
Somewhat.
Compare it to grandma's home cooking. Now, 20 seconds.
It's Sunday. That's a feed of jigs. Fantasy hockey and a feed of jigs.
I'm
Let's
just
go.
Curious. I want to hear you do this. Well, now I'm fantasy sports to grandma's home cooking.
Well, I can't compare fantasy
Compared
sports
to Buddy Holly's glasses.
All right, I get it. All right, fine.
Well, if
you
the
win.
lens
I'm not trying to prove you wrong. I'm not trying to prove you wrong.
If the lens fits, Tier,
Yeah.
back to Buddy Holly's glasses.
Well, I didn't mean anything quite so broadly. I didn't mean anything quite so broadly as that, but I just meant in terms of any sort of investment into any particular thing, right? Like, you know, and the fact of the matter is that if you want to compare it to grandma's home cooking, what's your favorite team? And your favorite team might not be as good as Chuck's favorite team, but you love them. So, you know, your grandma might not cook Sunday dinner as good as Chuck's, but fuck if you'll believe that. If you know, at the end of the day, you've got your favorite team, and that's who you're invested in. And even though they might do worse. Even though they might do worse in a given season than Chuck's favorite team.
Grandma's plate, what do you think is what's going to win? What food is going to win on there? The peas, the fucking mashed potatoes.
I think a Sunday dinner lives and dies on
salt beef.
Okay, so
I think a Sunday dinner lives and dies on the stuffing.
Stuffing, the dressing, interesting take.
I think that's the one.
So
that's the big variable.
Nucleus of the team.
That's the big variable.
That's the nucleus of the team. If you didn't have the stuffing, it wouldn't bring everything together, right? That's your Andrew Shaw's, the fucking stuffing, right? The stuffing is calling out everything else. Do your fucking part. We need some gravy here to bring everything together.
Yeah.
What's going on? The gravy can't not be around. The goalie can't not be playing well for us, right?
Yeah.
The fucking peas, everything got to be in order. I got to have the same thing on my fork every single time for it to make me feel good. I need to have all elements of what I'm eating on the fork. There's the comparison.
I've got a question. How did you get so quickly within, I'm going to say like 9 seconds, you go from grandma's dinner to Buddy Holly's glasses?
Oh, I have no idea. I was trying to think of random objects that I would find hard to make it. Right, to be honest, first 4 or 5 things, there was a comparison. I was going to go compare it to, a summer vacation, and then I thought of compare it to this, compare it to that, whatever it might have been, and that was just where I landed. And imagine where I landed.
Where you landed.
Think about that.
Space
in between grandma's home cooking
Buddy
and Buddy Holly's fucking glasses.
Does your nan have a thing for Buddy Holly or something?
Imagine. Who knows? But do you know this though, guys? I fucking knocked on Buddy Holly's door and his parents answered. How about that shit?
Wow.
I'll end with this because I got to take off. Take off. I'm in Dallas Stars camp in 2001.
Yep.
Okay.
And in 2001, Buddy Holly's parents were still alive?
Look it up. I got no reason to even say. I bet you they were.
No. I'm not.
You know what? I want you to look this up. I do want you to look this up, Mike. I'm sitting here behind the computer, guys, because I've not always told this story because it's outlandish at times.
His parents
died.
His father passed away in 85. His mother passed away in 90.
No way.
That's what it says here.
Oh well, Jesus, I'm totally wrong.
Might have been like a brother. His
could have been. I was
his
at
siblings.
His
siblings were all still alive then.
Okay, you know what? It was probably them then. I'm not kidding you. In Lubbock, people that have been to Lubbock have played there probably know this. So I was in Dallas, and we went up to Lubbock, which is Buddy Holly's hometown, and they have the Buddy Holly Museum, but it's like this. I seem to remember like a ranch house style home off the road.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Buddy Holly Center.
Are you? There you go. See, and we're not looking at the same screen for those out there that think I'm bullshitting, because it is an outlandish story. But the locals, I'm just like, I love Buddy Holly's music. I know every song. He would probably be my top 10 for sure, maybe even 5. So I wanted to go, and it's the house that he grew up in, and I just knocked on the door, and a bunch of elderlies answered. I would have sworn that it was Buddy Holly's mother and father, though. I've told the story as that maybe it was his brother or sister. Or you're looking at it now, though, right?
Yeah, no, his parents were born in 1901 and 1902, respectively. So they each would have. His dad would have had to been 100 years old.
That's why I thought.
So he passed away.
That's why I thought it was such a great story. But now the story's not as good.
Yeah,
because I didn't meet Buddy Holly's parents.
But his brother.
And they're in Lubbock. Yeah, it was his family then.
Yeah,
that was it. It was his family. They were probably running the Buddy Holly Museum.
Probably.
It just seemed like a really odd thing at the time that I knocked on the door, and people answered, and there was a bunch of people inside. It was almost like a get together or something. And then the museum part wasn't even that much of a museum, but it was really impressive. I'm really into Buddy Holly, by the way. If you haven't.
I love Buddy Holly too.
Sunday dinner, apparently.
Yeah, no,
right from there, yeah. And you know what? Maybe that was it. My earliest memories are I knew the words to every Buddy Holly song before I knew the "Oh Father," "Our Father," or the "Hail Mary" or any of that. And I say that because here we had to learn that in school.
Oh yeah.
So I remember like Buddy Holly being like the first. I didn't even understand that he was dead or anything. Dad had records there, and I could listen to them before the days of cell phones and video games, or I might have had Atari or something. But it'd probably being like 3 years old. So it's not only that I love his music, it's what it means to me. You know, there's something like that for everybody. I
know,
think.
and I was the same way. I was a huge Buddy Holly fan from the time I was a kid on. I think we said before, both of us, our favorite song when we were like 3 years old was "Oh Boy."
Yeah.
You know,
right.
it was just. I think that came up somewhere along the way. But I love Buddy Holly.
And something about that music is really relatable to a kid, even though he was singing about often heartbreak.
He was a kid.
He was a kid. Yes.
He was.
So like,
I mean, his entire musical output
like,
is from the time he was 18 till 21.
Imagine that.
He passed away when he was 22 years old.
You know, a lot of it is skiffly rockabilly type stuff. And the first thing that appealed to me, I mean, you can't really interpret lyrics.
Yeah.
You know, I can't sit there and go, I'll give a rundown of Blonde on Blonde. With Bob Dylan's expertise and genius. Let's talk about his songwriting. You know, when you're 3, 4, 5, like that takes until like you're almost in college by the time you really understand all that. But like for me, the first thing that got me was the Rock Around with Ali V, Oh Boy, Maybe Baby. I could snap my fingers to it. And I could be alone and listen to it, and it would keep me occupied rather than
just that like kind of machine gun start to rave on.
It's great.
Love
right?
that. Love it so
and
much.
It really did appeal to me. And then so when I learned the words, it was almost just like stream of consciousness.
Yeah.
I didn't think about what they were about. It's just I could do Buddy Holly songs.
Yeah.
And after that, I remember I talk about the Beatles a lot. I got a fucking tattoo of the Beatles.
But I mean, the Beatles are named after the Crickets.
Yeah, I got it, but that was way longer. I remember liking Buddy Holly, and then from there I went to like the Stan Ross and the Supremes, Jerry and the Pacemakers.
Oh,
it was
Jerry and the
all that.
Pacemakers are great.
Because like I said, Dad had these
underrated.
thousands of albums, and I gravitated towards that stuff. I didn't understand that it was like 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
It could have been now. It didn't matter to me. But I remember Dad like getting me into the Beatles a few years later, and he said like, because I liked the early stuff, the pop stuff.
Yeah.
Poppy. And,
but I think it's the same thing. Is like as a kid, you can get behind those first couple Beatles records, but it takes like you've got to be a certain age to really get anything after Help.
But
like Help is a real turning point record.
But this is the genius of the Beatles, and this is what I love. Like I didn't have to get Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. The colors and everything appealed to me, and like then later I was like, oh, LSD. But at first they got so many songs like that cross over. Good morning, good morning, good morning, for the benefit of Mr. Kite.
Yeah.
Like these things sound like a playland to me. The whole Sgt. Pepper experience for me as a kid was that like this was exciting. It was like a parlor atmosphere. It was like Barnum and Bailey or something. And this is the Beatles.
I mean, it was. You know, that's the whole.
And I didn't like this deeper meaning. Almost every song has some sort of like background, even like Without You, or the way Harrison wrote it, or the fact that A Day in the Life, there's so much about that. The last song on the most important album by the most important artist of all time, arguably. There's so many places you could go, but it's still great as an album that can appeal to kids, as a circus type, carnival album. And that to me, I remember loving that, and my dad then telling me, but you're going to want to pay more attention because they impacted the world. You could hate the music, but you're still going to, in the end, love the Beatles.
I'm somebody who has a firm opinion that anybody who says they don't like the Beatles just hasn't listened to enough of the Beatles.
There's
something for everybody.
There really is, and that's what. And not only that, think about it. What other bands have someone leading? Like I don't know if they were all lead singer at some point. The lead vocalist on a particular song. They all wrote songs. I know Ringo would be lacking in both those categories, but he still did it.
Yeah.
If you listen to, and name me another band.
Yeah.
It's not like the Stones do that. Well, Pearl Jam, go down the list. Eagles are the...
They aren't on the
Eagles.
same stratosphere, but I am going to bring up Canada's Rheostatics. They're not in the same stratosphere, but they have the same element.
They have the
same
all
singers, all
I can only think of the
songwriters.
Eagles.
Sloan's the same way.
Sloan
is like Sloan trade instruments on stage, and the bass player Chris Murphy goes back and plays drums. Andy comes out and sings and all that kind of stuff.
So we named Eagles because there's not many. Eagles, Sloan, Rheostatics, all bands I love.
Yeah.
So who knows? And I think to me, like even there's bands I love like Pearl Jam, but I can't listen to 3 albums in a row because it's often, and I mean this with they're probably in my top 20 bands ever.
Yeah.
But it starts to get monotonous when it's just Eddie Vedder's sound all the time.
And that's the thing is,
a lot of bands are like that.
And it's a weird thing of like there are some bands like that where you get like one guy put out a solo record and you're like, you know, if it's like Eddie Vedder does solo stuff and you're like, why? You're the like you are that like, you know, with Bush, Gavin Rosdale does a solo record and you're like, why do you need to?
You're Martin and Coldplay.
Exactly. It's just kind of like, what is it? Whereas in the with the Beatles or whoever, that's what the White Album is. It's 4 solo records.
As far as mega
right?
success, I'm going to say the Eagles. Now, who else? Maybe someone can hashtag hot take it and send it in, but
I really the hell did we get
everybody.
Here?
I don't know. How are we talking about the fucking Eagles right now, right?
I don't know. We'll always gravitate towards music.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe there's another big time band. I'm trying to think of all of them, like the Who. I'm going down where everybody.
Yeah,
everybody.
I think there's only 2 songwriters in the Who.
Yeah, right.
John Entwistle.
I mean, like that. You know, because we laugh about Ringo, but like Yellow Submarine, Octopus's Garden, these are. You know,
that's the thing is you can laugh about Ringo, but like Ringo was still that guy. It was still the fucking Beatles.
Hey,
right? Like at the end of the day, like being the kind of like lightweight in the Beatles is still being a fucking heavyweight in literally any other band.
You know what's funny for
the band as well? Actually,
the band.
Nice. Again, another band that we fucking love.
Yeah, absolutely adore.
It's
but
crazy.
Everybody
and another band that it each song has a different kind of feel to it, even though it's all coming from the same place.
Yeah.
But the Beatles now are very extreme. But it's funny, and Penny Lane. She just turned 9 the other day, but it's, you know, I would play it at an early, I don't force it upon her, but if we were sitting down, if I was feeding her, or if I'm, you know, reading the paper, I would have the Beatles on in the background, just, you know, if nothing else, she's going to know who these important people are. And so it's funny, the first fucking 3 songs that she wanted me to put, that she liked, Yellow Submarine, Octopus's Garden, and With a Little Help from My Friends. Wow. Not knowing anything, 3 Ringo songs. Right, you got to go out of your way to think of them, but they were the first 3, and that says so much. But
did she watch a lot of Shining Time Station?
I put after a while that when she was like 3 and 4, I put that on. Yeah,
no, because that's the thing is I wonder about that with kids is like you know, are those Ringo songs? Because he's got kind of like that bassy, goofy voice, and it's just kind of like, does the Shining Time Station thing feed into that for kids? And I've just wondered about that. I think
it would have. That was a great question. No, she was big time into it. She had all the Thomas the Tank and Percy and all that shit. She, you know, we still got it at home. She's kind of outgrown it, but maybe Ringo was the connector there. Yeah,
unless you're really big on George.
You might want to check her birthday. You said it's a couple of days ago. It might actually be the exact day, not the same year, of course, that John Lennon made the "Bigger Than Jesus" quote. That's
hers is March 4th.
What? Hers is March 4th? I think it's probably 2 weeks early. I know that was in the news a few weeks ago, maybe 2 weeks ago. That was, I don't know, like 50 years or whatever since he had said the Beatles are bigger than Jesus.
Wow.
Yeah, it was the anniversary.
You know what? And that's such a topic. I'm going to end it there.
Yeah, no,
if people don't know what that means when John Lennon said they were bigger than Jesus, go check it out. It's worth your while. At the very least, there's a YouTube clip. I recommend the Beatles Anthology DVD set. Go through it.
I got it on VHS upstairs.
You know what's funny? And I got it on DVD, but I don't think it's on Blu-ray yet. How the fuck it's not, I don't know. But I
don't know.
I've never heard of it come, and it really seems to be behind the times because there seems to be a new Beatles
March
catalog.
4th.
No way. That's when he said it?
March 4th. Cleve interviewed Lennon on March 4th, 1966.
Wow.
Look at that.
Wow, there's a lot of that's a topic for another day, I tell you that.
There we go. All right.
I almost don't want to take off. But anyway, there it is. We'll finish with the Beatles.
And
Buddy Holly this day.
And of course, thanks for listening. On that, we'll all take off. I got some day boiling to do because it's Patty's Day when we're recording this right now. Thanks to Brian Boucher, who's actually going to be talking to tomorrow. But yeah, you heard it a little while ago. And we'll be back next week to talk at you about hockey. Talk to you then.
Catch you later.